Welcome to MaD Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Davis. My co-host is Matt Flowers. Today we have a great guest. This is going to be a good show, but first, I do have to kind of get this out of the way. None of us are legal experts. None of us are medical experts. And don't make jerk-off motions. Okay, Matt, you're breaking my concentration as I'm trying to not get us in prison.
Can you be in prison for whatever?
Obama said yes. None of us are legal experts. None of us are medical experts. We are only presenting views and experiences from our guests, highly individualized situation. If you're going to move forward in the in any of the areas that we talk about, consult your doctor or consult a legal attorney before doing so.
Which is good because I'm both a lawyer and a doctor.
Well, that makes it easy.
He's being
Shoot
facetious.
us an email, madbroradio@gmail.com. I will set you straight.
He's being facetious. Please do not do that. Okay.
Well, you could email. I would like to get the emails either way.
Yeah.
Asking medical advice.
Yeah, email us for our medical advice. We'll give it to you on the show. just be aware that neither of us have a MD. Okay. On our show today, we have Mr. Christian Radcliff. Christian grows marijuana. Okay. Now, I'm going to sound like an idiot this episode. I'm not a big pot guy. Okay. Christian, you are.
Yes, I am. It's been a few interesting years of trying to grow, and now we're doing it legally. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. So first off, tell me about your company. What exactly do you do? Who are y'all?
We are. I'm from Texas. That works. We are flower factories. We are in Washington State, and we specialize in vegan and organic weed, which all recreational based. We also do medical, but it's completely separate. And we've been doing that for a few years here now, and it's been good.
And is that a storefront? Like, where are you located?
In Washington State, there's processors, producers, and retailers. Each one is separated, and each one has its own tax tier. You cannot have a retail and a processor producer in the state. So we only grow and only deal with actual shops. So we supply to a few shops, yes.
Okay.
We're trying, yeah.
Okay, awesome then. Okay, so like this isn't something that like someone with $20 can go. You only do wholesale.
Oh yeah, this is costs a few $1,000s to apply and costs a lot more thousands in all the all your paperwork, getting everything finalized, your camera systems. There's a lot of hidden costs in getting into this, and yeah.
Right on. So that's flower factories in Washington.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Do you have a website or something to plug?
We need to create all that. This next 2 months, we have to do social media, and I figured this would be a good place to start. So
awesome.
Thank you for having me.
We're glad to be your launching off point. So just
hopefully it's all uphill from here.
Oh
yeah,
it's all up from here.
Hopefully
this isn't a very great launching pad.
Hopefully,
it's more of just a beginning
team.
Resting place. So hopefully work your way up.
Hopefully the SWAT team doesn't bust in during the interview.
That actually might make you guys more popular than anything else if something like that were to happen, or a robbery right now, which we were always paranoid about.
Oh, really? All right. So tell us about your initial entry into growing marijuana.
Well, in about, I think, 2008 or 9, I'd been smoking for years before that in states where it's not so much legal, but I got into growing small scale in my closet and everything else. There we go.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Are we better now?
We are better.
For now.
Okay, did it quit out for y'all?
Oh, yes, yeah. We all,
yeah,
it all fell
the whole
apart.
system.
That's what it looked to me like. All Skype went down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was, when it went down for me, I was about to ask a question. Okay,
Go ahead.
When did it go down for everyone else?
I don't know. Either
think
before or after that, at some point close in time. How are we supposed to know in relation?
Well, I don't know. Like, had I already started my question, or was Christian still answering?
You were starting your question, I think. You were just starting to talk, and I think it whooped.
Oh, Matthew's the one recording, so
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, I heard it was the same. Yeah, same deal.
Okay.
Make sure I'm recording still on this one. Okay, we're cool.
So I'm just going to edit these together. Okay.
You'll
so
probably say it in such the same way that you can literally just cut and paste, and it'll.
I'm a professional like that.
I guess so.
Skills.
All right.
Call it that.
So I just want to touch on a statement you just made there. You were consuming marijuana prior to it being legal.
Yeah, I guess I was like most of America who's at least tried it at some point, but I kind of not fell in love with it, but started using it a lot in my day-to-day right around college, a few years into it.
So I am the marijuana novice. Okay.
Ooh.
So when right, novice, like when you're just not very experienced.
Yeah, that's
with it.
correct.
Okay.
Use the word, yeah.
That's one of the ones. That's one of the few times where I think I know a word, so I can go ahead and use it and just make sure.
Very few times.
Use it correctly. Very few times.
Usually,
yeah.
you never doubt yourself even when it's wrong. But.
Especially when I'm wrong. Okay. So what what got you started on sort of getting deeper into going from an illegal user and sort of gaining more knowledge?
Well, of like a lot of other people who probably get into it, I was looking at some friends who were dealing illegally when I was up in Alaska, who were doing just fine with it. They actually pay their college tuition and were doing well with it. And the fact that they were willing to risk it in a really illegal environment and keep selling this thing, keep pushing the product. It seems like no matter how illegal it is, people will have access to it and will find it in some way. And if I saw some legal venues where we could grow as much as we wanted without worrying about the police and everything else, which the anxiety alone you're losing with that, I felt like it was a really good reason to move here. That and the plants themselves, like I've been vegan for a long time. Just the fact that I love plants, I like working with them, and I wanted to make a business around it. This seemed like the most viable, economical option I could go with, and it kind of went from there.
Right on. So, what was tell me about the first time you smoked weed? I mean, because like it has to be like quite a journey from there to now, right?
I think the first time I smoked weed, I was 15 or 16 in Texas, of all places. Please, God, don't ever let that
Cowboys.
come back to me. Seriously, I have a friend still in jail down there for who was dealing at the time, and it kind of freaked me out too. But I was driving with three other guys. They were seniors. And we were in a car, of all places. This was a stupid thing from my past that I suggest no one ever do. But we were all smoking in between classes.
One of the things we can confidently say is good legal advice is don't smoke weed and drive.
No, never. Like, to this day, I don't do it. It's the one – they have a DUI thing with Initiative 502 here in Washington, so you don't want to touch that at all. Yeah, that's scary. So we were driving anyway. It was the three of us. I had never smoked before, and while I was smoking for the first time ever, they said, "Okay, I'm gonna smoke now." The guy who was driving, and they said, "Take the wheel of the car." And first time ever smoking, I was like, "Okay, I'll hold on to this wheel and drive." And we're just like sliding back and forth on a country road, and I'm like, I never want to do this again. Long story short, those guys never talked to me again after that because I was a complete novice, and they hated the fact that I was very paranoid and whatever when I was smoking. But that was the first time I ever smoked, and from there, yeah.
Matthew, your story.
First timer. Here we go.
I have a thousand stories just like that of driving around and stuff. I think the first time was, I don't know. We were just chilling on some like railroad tracks and some deep woods, and I think it was the first time it was the first time I smoked. First time I ever smoked a cigarette. First time I ever had alcohol was all on the same night. And I just went home and just lay. I passed out in the bathroom or something. I don't know. It really fucked with me that first time. They say some people don't get high the first time, but I got real.
You did?
Real fucked up. I don't know. It was a combination of everything, I suppose. Yeah, that cigarette.
So you would say that's the night that you went to the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Zing. Okay. My story. Because everyone who has ever consumed marijuana has the first usage story, just like alcohol. Okay, mine's real lame.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah, my first alcohol stories were lame because it was my 21st birthday.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Do everything at once.
No, but my first marijuana story, I was like 14 or 15. Would have been however old you are as a sophomore in high school.
That's where I did it. Yeah.
Okay. This guy who I knew from band. Okay, we were both tuba players. Okay. Yeah, is anyone shocked that I played tuba?
I played the tuba.
No.
We have that.
Piano.
And he found a guy who he could buy marijuana from, and of course he completely robbed me because we were going to go half on $20 worth. So I gave him my 10. And he only bought $10 worth. Like you dick.
So much.
But we went under a bridge next to the bike trail, okay, and
Every day. Okay, keep going, son.
yeah, and he fashioned a pipe out of aluminum foil.
Yep. You might have a can at first.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think I've told Matthew this story, so he knows where this is going. So I got very intoxicated on my first time, and we ended up walking like 2 miles, just freaked out at our own shadows, literally. Like we just kept talking about our shadows, like they were. But we walked to a Cece's, which is like a buffet style pizza place that we have down here. I don't know if y'all have them up there.
Oh yeah.
Where you at?
Cece, I'm in Dallas.
Okay, yeah, we've had CC's in San Antonio. That's where I was at.
Oh, right on. So
CC's
yeah,
is everywhere. Yeah, it's got it.
It's everywhere.
well, I don't know that. Okay, I brought up Luby's on the show before, thinking that was everywhere.
I didn't. Yeah, never heard of that.
Yeah, they're everywhere here. They're everywhere. It's like if you know someone who's over the age of 60, anyone over the age of 60 has been in a Luby's in the past week.
Like Golden Corral or Country
Exactly,
Kitchen.
Golden Corral.
Well, here Golden Corral is, if you know anyone who is of Hispanic origin, they go to Golden Corral every week. If you go in there, I mean, all the signs are in Spanish.
I bet
everything.
The sweatpants count in a Golden Corral is pretty high. The average sweatpants wear there is higher than most places.
Sweatpants, but also using the little clip-on suspenders to hold them up.
That's a thing? People put suspenders on sweatpants?
Oh,
wow.
Like, I'm a big dude, okay? But like last time I went to Golden Corral, there were at least 2 people who were way bigger than me. Both of them had sweatpants with suspenders.
I don't get that. What's the suspenders for? To hold the pants up, but that's what the elastic's for. So they wear the elastic down.
See, okay, you two are both skinny people, okay, so you don't understand. Okay.
For now, yeah, give it time.
Okay. One of the things with pants is pants are designed for people who are shaped like a thin person. Fat people like myself, when you're wearing something with elastic, the problem is your stomach area is wider than your butt. Okay. So like they slide down. That's why the fat people always have.
I think that's an all people thing.
No, but your hips, like on a thin person, their hips sort of come out just a little bit on the side, like where their pelvis is.
Yeah, you have to tuck the pants under your Dunlap, which is that piece of fat that comes over your belt thing. If you don't have that, and it looks weird if you use Dunlap, it laps over.
Technical term.
My family's a bunch of big people, so we call them funny things.
And I know who he's talking about. It's really good. It's really good for when you're driving and your hands are cold. You can just tuck one underneath.
Yep, nice and warm, like an armpit, but always there.
Yeah, nice and warm. It's good for holding your phone in place.
People underestimate the amount of uses fat has when you have a lot of it. It can hold these crevices.
Yeah. But like with big people, like their pants are always like falling because they're always going down because the area like where like their love handles are is wider than the width of their pelvis, so they just sort of slide down. you make it tighter, it's just going to go lower.
You got to introduce the people to suspenders, which are awesome for that, as well
Yeah.
as flowing things from the top, like a moo-moo.
Yeah.
There need to be no social exceptions of those things.
Yeah. So like the suspenders with sweatpants, you get how comfortable sweatpants are, but they're not always falling on you.
I like sweatpants. I'm a very casual dresser. Anything that's comfort, I prefer. I hate dressing up in every single sense. Anything that's uncomfortable.
I wear blue jeans and hiking boots like every day.
Practical.
Hiking boots. Wow.
Yeah,
yeah.
I have oddly shaped feet, and hiking boots are like all of them are designed in like the shape of my foot.
Well, and if you
It's
ever get
weird
stranded, you can hike whenever you need to.
Off-roading.
Yeah, off-roading for your
Well,
Yeah.
four-wheel
it's
drive.
It's like the Supercross version of walking.
Yeah,
in case you ever have to go out in the dirt.
I know what you say about size of your foot and stuff, especially if you have a lot of weight on you. The heavier you are, there's muscles all throughout the foot and the lower leg, and they like support weight differently. It changes the shape of the foot and everything. It's really neat. Humans are really interesting like that.
I wear a size 10 4E.
10 5.5.
Yeah, I'm a size
I wear-
10.
So it's a size 10. Okay, but then like you know size 10 wide.
I wear
Okay.
those. Yeah.
Okay. Now it goes wide E, double E, triple E, 4E. I'm in 4E.
What
We're talking.
Dang.
We're
does the E
talking.
stand for?
I have no clue.
Extra large.
Extra.
Expanded.
Extra.
Expanded?
Probably
Yeah,
extra.
Extra.
probably extra wide. Okay,
Mhm.
but like, so it's 5 steps away from a normal size shoe. Like my feet are practically squares. And like you're talking about with the muscles, like my feet are probably so ripped underneath the fat. Like just
yeah, they
ripped.
got support weight all day.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm a big dude, but like if I just showed you pictures of my calf muscles, you'd be like, oh, that dude like spends some serious time in the gym, like
All day, every day.
Yeah, he's a little bloated right now. That's why you don't see the definition on the sides, but those are some big calves.
I get jelly of big people with calves. Sorry, you got it going on right there. There's a one muscle group that got powered up. That and the supporting ones, all the support muscles.
Yeah, all this.
And the
little
hips.
shows. The hips, a lot of hips.
Yeah, like the few times I do go to the gym, I'm like struggling with my 20-pound dumbbells, but then I get on the little thing where like you sit down and push with your feet.
Just crush it.
And I'm just maxing out the rack. There's a little slide thing. I put it all the way at the bottom. I'm like, whatever, 1 foot. This is easy. It's like 300 pounds. I'm like, that's me if I lost weight, homie.
Step down.
Yeah. Like this is easy. But I was telling my story there. Well, the problem with the pipe fashioned out of aluminum foil is
Aside
that I am
from all the health problems with smoking
it's probably
aluminum.
terrible for your health.
It is.
It's especially terrible for my health because I'm allergic to aluminum.
Oh God, that probably made you do something weird then with that.
Well, what happened is I spent the entire next day, like maybe every 15 to 20 minutes, just the most violent vomiting you've ever experienced.
That happened. I threw up the first couple times I smoked really good weed, and that apparently doesn't happen with many people. But I the first couple times. I smoked really decent weed in Alaska, and it never has happened since. But yeah, first couple times smoking. I wonder if it has something to do with the pot or the foil.
Yeah, what kind of weed were you
a-
smoking the first time, David?
Oh, I have no clue, but I know
Mexican brick weed
That's
probably.
in Texas.
I think
Yes.
that's something all the first time story or anybody that smoked weed in high school ever has a bunch of things in common. The bike path under the bridge, the walking for far too long, being super paranoid, the aluminum of some kind, whether it's aluminum foil, a pop can. I mean, an apple. You guys smoked out of an apple?
Oh yeah,
I just smoked out of an apple last
No.
weekend. We're still rocking that.
I
have not.
Eggplants.
Eggplant.
Eggplants do really well if you hollow them out. They have the perfect texture and stuff. They're weird.
Not as readily available, though.
No, it seems like the wetter the fruit, the worse it is.
You
like
know,
you
yeah,
can
I've
smoke out of
attempted pear before. Never go pear. Pear is not good.
Jeez, how much?
Don't
weed
go
do you
pineapple.
smoke?
I don't anymore. But in high school, I didn't drink in high school. I just smoked all the time.
You guys don't smoke anymore, man. Come to Washington's. I'll hook you up with a recreational shop, and we'll start smoking together.
See, I was going to get to this after he got done with all the boring grow questions, but I just can't smoke anymore. I get fucking paranoid. I have anxiety attacks. It destroys my whole day. I have to come home every single time, and I just fucking lay in my bed. Like, it's terrible. It's not. And every time it's going to happen, probably very soon. It'll be available again. I'll be like, Matt, you shouldn't do this. And I'll end up in the same predicament.
I have smoked 4 times in my life. 4 times.
Jesus.
Okay. The first time I spent the entire next day just projectile vomiting.
Okay. Good start.
The second time, I didn't smoke. I had a brownie, and not
a good second.
Edibles.
I remember I watched a Norm Macdonald comedy special and thought it was hilarious.
Because it probably is.
Oh yeah, Norm Macdonald's funny, but it was like life changing. You know,
you're crying like that's such a good point.
I was literally crying, dude. Like I couldn't believe what was going on. And after that, I went and watched a bunch of Norm Macdonald's movies, and I think he's really underappreciated. But moving on,
and I actually agree with that. I saw him in SNL and stuff. He's great.
He was in a movie with Dave Chappelle.
Is it Liar Liar or is that the? Oh, that's really good. Scrooge. I saw that too. That's really good.
Yeah,
really,
really good.
Somebody's recommended it to me. I already looked it up once when we talked about it on the podcast, and I only found it in German on the internet or Russian.
No, dude, Matt, I'm just gonna mail you my copy.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah, that's
legal.
Yeah. I'll just send it to you. That's not an issue.
Well, why didn't you
suggest
that when I was texting you? I'm watching this in fucking Russian.
You thought you knew Russian
because you wanted to watch it that night.
I did.
Okay, and
okay. I got you.
You know, U.S. Postal Service is awesome, but Dallas to Iowa overnight or same night, not going to happen.
Can you mail stuff out without the post office being open?
Well, they have drop boxes.
Right, but I mean, my post office, I can even go in and open my P.O. box. You know, there's that setup with all the boxes and shit. I don't mail anything, but I got to mail something out. Can I just go anytime and do it?
Yeah, just put it in the little drop box.
But I mean, they probably have the stuff I could set. I go there every day. Why am I asking you? I could check it out and look. But.
Yeah, they should have a little thing that you can go to that'll weigh it and print out a little sticker that you're supposed to put on it saying that you've paid. They have a little self-service. They have a little self-service kiosk, or just go to stamps.com, dude.
Fuck that.
We're not being paid by them, but that actually works. I feel like I'm supposed to be plugging
right, yeah, as soon as you said stamps.com, it all went through my head too. Let's start listening.
Stamps.com.
Yeah, the promo code MadBro.
Yeah.
Get your free scale. Everyone's heard them. Which the post office really has to be happy that the scale is being taken back, because previously if you went into the Office Depot, those scales weren't being sold for postage. It was for drugs, right?
Oh yeah, we have to use the most advanced scales. It's so funny. Yeah, we have to have it attached to BioTrack THC and everything else. Yeah.
So, wow, this is going to be such a nerd question, but
I like
the scale y'all have to use. Does it have to be certified by the Washington State Board of Ways and Means or Weights and Measures?
I don't know if it's certified by that, but I think we have to have a legit scale that will have proper data, because we have to track everything from seed to sale. So everything we do has to be monitored and tracked and weighed and everything else. So everything has to be as legit as possible. So I probably should have a scale that's verified by the Washington Measurement Society, or what is it called?
Do they have that? Is that even a thing? That seems
like
something
million things I'm learning about.
No, there is a United States Department of Weights and Measures. If you go next time you go to fill up your gas tank, look on the pump. You will see a sticker from the U.S. Department of Weights and Measures saying that that machine has been tested, and when it says 1 gallon, that it's dispensed 1 gallon. And you have the same thing with scales, that like a lot of hospitals have to have those. If you dispense, I mean, the reason why I asked that is because like y'all do some medical still, and I know like medications, if it says 500 milligram, they're supposed to be able to drop it on there and it say 500 milligrams on a certified scale.
Yeah, we have scales that are like $400 that attach to our computers and have all the data entered into a system. So they're pretty much top of the line scales that no one's gonna have a question with it. If you were to hand weigh everything and have like a little readout and write it down, it wouldn't be good enough for these people. They are really bad about going to every single little thing, like the camera systems, how good the resolution is, the type of analog or IP. They go into every single detail of our business, so they really want everything legitimate.
Yeah, and what do you have to have cameras for?
We have to have 28 individual cameras on our 2,000 square foot property.
Why 28? Why that number?
Because they want a camera on every entrance. They want a camera on every work area. They want a camera on every single part of the grow where we'll be working. They don't want any single gram of weed going out of place. They want to be able to track everything and have a legitimate means of tracking the person growing it so they can cancel out the black market and recreational. They want to make sure they know where everything is going by allowing us to do this. Because I think they're going to be squashing medical and black market on a lot of levels in the next few years here, and in most states.
What would be the motivation for squashing medical? Like, isn't that a valuable service?
The medical service is something that we back up and are 100% for, and the medical uses of it are endless, especially with the 500 or so cannabinoids out there, 468 or something like that. THC is pretty much the only one they care about in recreational because it's the psychoactive one, the one that makes you high, and that's why the recreational and medical thing are being separated on that level, because people do smoke this to get high, and the medical market is pretty much a breeding grounds for black market. We've encountered a lot of bad things over the last few years interacting with the medical side because black market's attached, and it's illegitimate in a lot of ways.
Right on. So they're not they're going to crack down on medical. They're not necessarily getting rid of that classification, are they?
Well, see, medical on this side of the state is weird because, for example, the Seattle City Attorney released his recommendations for the state for the next year, and basically recreational is protected because we're paying our federal taxes, 25% federal on top of state taxes. So they said recreational is okay by the federal government pretty much, but medical and black market are not at all federally legal, and because of that, the state will mirror that and crack down on it as well. So they're really trying to do away. It's very odd. It's not full legalization by any means. It's a money game still here. And as long as they're getting the taxes from people, they don't care. But medical doesn't have to pay taxes. They pay at most a sales tax. And I want full legalization. I'm just trying to grow as much weed as possible in the places it's legal still, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah, you definitely have that's a rather biased perspective. Like it's admittedly biased perspective, right? Like you have an economic incentive for full legalization. In my mind, I have no economic motivation. That sounds bizarre to me. That first off, you have to pay sales tax on medication.
If you have a dispensary here in any part of the state that's not in the county, like in a city limits, the city will have individual laws stating that you have to be registered with the state, have a UBI number, go through the city council, be 1,000 square feet away from any schools or any place where children would be present. And because these weren't innate things with medical and it was all over the place, unregulated, we're seeing a lot of issues, especially with people who sell in-state and they ship it out of state to, say, New York to make 4 times the profit. But this is basically like a breeding grounds for people being able to have a lot of product available that they move out of state very quickly. And since it's not at all traced in the medical community, it's very open-ended with the laws here in the state. It's Wild West. They're seeing a lot of issues with out-of-state corruption where it's still illegal and then coming to Washington. It's a very complicated system overall. And I don't know. I don't like the way they're doing it, but I'm a part of it.
Well, I mean, the fact that so they're. I'm the bleeding heart liberal here. Okay. I think there's a valuable place for a government system to regulate commerce, but I think when you get into things like any medication, anything that a doctor prescribes to a patient, or anything like marijuana that's used recreationally, where there's not a risk of immediate self-induced death. Like, you can't commit suicide by taking too much marijuana. Okay.
Well,
Right.
I think
depends on how anxious you are.
It hasn't happened yet.
No, I mean, you might as a result of consuming, but like, you're not going to consume so much you die. Okay?
Oh yeah, no.
It bothers me that they're saying, hey, here's, or any medication, not just marijuana, okay? It's your Viagra or your OxyContin, okay? What the government has no business keeping a registry of everyone who buys Sudafed. Like you're putting a regulation on a medication. This is something that we have decided. The FDA has approved for medical use with its hydrocodone or amoxicillin, just a basic antibiotic. The federal government has approved that for medical use. Why are we putting barriers in between a doctor or patient and them hopefully getting well? So like when you say that that you have to pay sales tax on medical marijuana, I have insurance, so like I go in, it's like a $5 copay, it's $5. I'm really bothered by the idea that there might be sales tax in there. Like, you're taxing that, you are charging me to try and get well.
$1
See,
bill.
I think it's all about money. And as much as I would like to be like, well, see, the medical side of pills and everything else, there's more death than that, than pot and everything else. And the real medical uses of pot for THC aren't exactly limited, but for the amount of things you can really heal with marijuana, with the 468 different cannabinoids out there, THC, the one that makes you high, has been the one that has been focused on strains, on what has been grown for many years. And on the medical side, high THC strains still seem to be the dominant one, the one you get high off of. The medical side of this should be more focused on growing new strains that have a higher amount of different cannabinoids that have a lot of other health effects. And the taxing thing gets kind of weird, because taxes in general they're necessary evil, and even the medical industry gets taxed. And I think they get their money from either privatized prisons or taxing cannabis or seizing cannabis stuff in these states right now. And sorry, to get back to your question, I would like to see there being no tax on medical. I would like to see all medical and all medicine in general be non-profit. But there's a huge for-profit system that exists in the United States that they're trying to tie in medical cannabis to and get their money from.
Well, okay.
I agree with you, to be honest.
Yeah,
really
and you touched on the big pharma, air quotes, big pharma, getting involved in marijuana. It's sort of been just the prevailing talking point that like your GlaxoSmithKline and your Pfizer have been real opponents of medical marijuana because it's so effective and it cures so many things. Is that before I make my statement, is that something that you've experienced as being true, being someone who's much closer to the industry than myself?
Well, for me, myself, and a lot of people in this industry, like I was on a lot of antipsychotics and things like that in my past. A lot of really hardcore prescription drugs that cost thousands of dollars each month. I actually weaned off of them with cannabis, and I think that may be a big fear, because if you can recreationally take cannabis and reduce a lot of your mental illnesses and everything else with it, that's a lot of money that's not going towards a lot of other drugs and everything else that they are making money on. So I'm worried about that stuff. Go ahead.
Okay, but my point, and I'm not saying you are incorrect. I'm just saying that what how it would work in my head is Big Pharma would be the first people to want to legalize marijuana if they saw a real recognized use, because it's another thing they could make money off of, and they already own the politicians. They can get the laws written to where they're the only ones who can grow it. Okay, it seems to me that if Big Pharma was so that they don't have an economic incentive to be anti-pot, because they have the economic position to become instead of Big Pharma, Big Pot.
I think that right now the states, for Big Pot and everything else, the way that they're legalizing it here, there's a lot of industry that is going. I'm getting all over the place right there with this right now, but for the reason why they probably want to limit the black market medical here is to have a small, very regulated, very taxed and controlled market that is supplying, where they do away with the black market medical. So when Big Pharma does get into this, they don't have competition from every common Joe out there who can grow weed and supply this thing to people. If they limit the market to the getting your license is a very hard process. Getting into this is a very hard process, and the people willing to do that are probably going to be attached to this bigger market. It's also going to be very small, and if they do away with the rest of it and only have us, they're going to have very good growers. They're going to have a very business-oriented group of people, and a lot of people who are willing to work with Big Pharma and everything else. If they just started being like legalizing pot, yes, it has these cures, yes, it can help people, we're going to lose a lot. They're going to lose a lot of money just because they can't control the market as well. If they limit it on each state level with state law and everything else before they make it federally legal, there's going to be a lot of state incentive to keep it controlled on the state level, and it won't fly off the handle when they finally do legalize it. They'll have a way to make it Big Pharma and everything else. If they legalized it now for everyone, it'd be very easy to control.
So you would
it
postulate,
would be hard to control, yes.
so you would postulate that that the pharmaceutical companies, you would say it's more reasonable that they are sort of guiding the current process of sort of slow change. They're holding back the rate of change in order to set the market up for their initial entry?
Yes, I think they're doing that exactly, because there's a lot of lobbyists and a lot of really corrupt dealings with the 502 legislation.
What does that mean?
Well, you cannot sell below your profit point, and they made this very expensive and everything else to start out with.
But that's what 502 is?
502 is an over-regulated system that I think is trying to set it up something that is different and more regulatable than the black and medical market.
I'm sorry. I'm
getting too far into myself.
You say 502. Okay.
Yeah, that's Initiative 502 in Washington is the bill that was passed that legalizes marijuana. Sorry, I've been talking about this with you for years.
Yeah.
I'm used to talking to people who know about it. Yes, 502 is – in 2012, Initiative 502 was passed. In 2011, it was on the ballot. It actually got more voter turnout than like anything else in the country, like ever. It was 81% of the voter turnout, and it was about 60% of the population here wanted it. But it was kind of pushed under the idea of legalizing marijuana, but really it was just handing it off to the Washington State Liquor Control Board that had previously lost actually controlling liquor in the state to keep a lot of jobs and everything else, which is a very odd thing because they completely failed the regulation of liquor and was handed marijuana. And they sold $192,000 bid on a lot of the information for the 502 licensee people. They're making extra money on this on the side. They're creating jobs with it. They're making as much money as they can out of this. And at the same time, they're really limiting what it could be by all this stupid, greedy taxation and everything else without representation. But they're really easy to work with. I've had no issues with the Liquor Control Board with our license or talking to them. So they're friendly towards us. But I think there's a secondary agenda that's going on under all of this. And it's becoming more apparent the more we're in this. It seems crazy.
So Pfizer comes to you tomorrow with cash. Would that be something you would look into? You'd be willing to consider, or are you in the ideologue camp of I'm here to help people and being local and
what? Who comes in with cash? What'd you say?
Pfizer.
What
big
Pfizer?
Old companies? Pfizer. Yes, to answer that,
That's a massive pharmaceutical company.
We've been offered $250,000 for a license before we even had the business.
Really?
Yeah, the moment we applied, they gave our emails to a lot of people. Our names were listed on a public database. Our location was listed on a public database that anyone can actually look up. Anyone can tell where we are in Washington with flower factories next to the name. They gave access to all these people to give us bids to have other parts of the business attached to us, like BioTrack THC, our traceability system. Emailed me well ahead of any part of the getting close to my application. Just to having the application alone and being able to give it to someone else, like you legally can't sell it, but if you give them all legal rights to start the business and run it, and then you give ownership over to them after the application process, yes, they were to buy it. At my highest bid was $250,000 a few months ago.
And how much did it cost to? How much is it costing to go through the application process?
For processor, producer, and retailer, they're all different prices, but they're all around $1,000 to $500. But there was only a 30-day application window. So for only 30 days, you could apply for these things, and that was already a year ago. So in that year, there's been no new applications added to the big bunch. And so if you have one of those, larger companies and millionaires and everything else want to buy your company up so they have more access to produce and everything else. And it's really weird.
So hold on. You had the potential to do 2,500% return on investment, and you said no?
Yeah, I really just want to grow pot, and for medical in the state, I love it. It's really
just
fun.
That's the title of the episode right there. No, because that's awesome.
Yeah, we could have sold out already, and we could sell out even after we get our application for more. Like there's full licenses with our square footage being sold for $400,000 to $500,000 the moment you get your application and can start producing. And I think even long term we could make more with that, but I'm not really worried about the money. I'm worried about we can only grow 45 plants in medical. We can grow 2,000 square feet for recreational with our building size, up to 21,000 square feet.
How much square feet does 45 plants take up?
We could do that.
How big is a plant?
Well, that's the weird thing, because since medical is limited to plant size or plant number, we had to maximize how many we could produce for medical. So we had to have 45 plants spaced out and gotten big enough that we could only harvest under our legal limit each time, which amounted to about 3 plants per week. And with 3 plants per week, we could get right under a legal limit of a couple pounds, move that out for donations, and keep us up and running. For recreational, since square footage is there, it changes the game. You can produce as many plants as you want in a small area, and actually that's more efficient, really, for the amount of pot you can produce. For 45 plants, you have bigger plants, you have bigger buds, you have a higher-end product. For square footage, I've noticed people really push out a cheap product, but the recreational shops also have issues with what kind of weed they're getting, and they're entering the market and they're learning a lot about too. And we talk to them a lot about what product they're looking for and what people want in the community right now. But for 2,000 square feet, we can grow hundreds of plants. I mean, I can play mad scientist all day with new growing methods and playing with like science and everything else behind it that I never got to do in environmental science and apply what I'm learning. And this seems to be a good mix of business and that for small business. Yeah.
Well, so, wow. So we're talking like a cornfield in a building, right?
Pretty much every single room besides our processing area is going to be plants. So every square foot of this building that we have is plants.
Well, how big is a like fully grown harvestable plant?
Well, you can do a very young plant. Like you could have a tiny little plant, like a few inches tall, and flower it out, and you'd get a couple little nugs on it. I mean, you could have how?
Just kidding. Or am I?
Hold on. Terminologies for idiots. Flower it out.
Yeah, you have a veg period and a flower period when you have a plant. The veg period determines how big the plant will be, and the flower period determines it creating as many flowers as it can during that time period. So 45 days.
Can you control that?
The light cycle controls it. So 24 hours or 18 hours of light will create the veg cycle. When you move to 12 hours and less hours towards the end of flower, you will have the flower period, and depending on how you do that, you'll have a different amount of THC, bud size, everything, terpene amount. All of that is affected by how you grow it, and light cycles especially. They're super important. Like, you have to have the room completely dark during the dark period of the flower cycle, no light whatsoever, or it will completely change the end product of the plant. So indoors you can control everything to a key, and the only issue I have with indoor is our electricity usage and stuff, which I hope to resolve in the next year with the money we make from this. So we're going all solar and all wind here, which will cut into our profits, but it will hopefully be a green system within the next year.
Okay, you defined flowered out. The next thing you said that I had a question about was put out for donation.
Mm-hmm. Because medical is not for profit, and that's another thing, comes back to taxes and everything else. Everyone here does it by donation, quotation marks. So you bring your product into the store and they give you a donation, which is for us around $6.50 a QP for a quarter pound of weed. So around $2,400 for a pound of weed.
So that is a generalized what people donate for that amount. It's not a set price.
Oh no, you can see all the way from 300, even lower than that, a QP, up to 800 the maxes I've seen. And we worked in shops and stuff.
Right on. In quarter pound.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the amount people usually buy in or donate and buy in for everything. Yes.
Yeah. Again, I'm not kidding in that I am an idiot when it comes to this stuff. Okay. So you've got to set up. You have a license. You're gonna be green. Okay. You're getting your whole thing set up. You said earlier you're trying to be like all organic.
Yeah, we've been growing organically and veganically for the last 5 years.
Veganically?
Yeah, 99 or most every single piece of weed you see out there has been grown in super soil or some kind of grow medium that people put together themselves, or even the nutrients they use in a hydroponic system. Almost all come from animal sources. Bat guano, bone meal, blood meal is the main source of most weed. And so me being vegan and everything else, I'm trying to push the ideology into my business and everything. But there's a 5% market. We're a small microbrew. It seems to do well in the state for medical, and I think for recreational, we'll sell really well with tourists and the people who are willing to pay as much as they do for recreational. And yeah,
wow.
Veganically is a little bit harder.
A lot more expensive too, I would guess, right?
Yes. The other thing is, too, we can only use products, grow mediums, nutrients, all by the state that they allow. There's a list of products we can use. And there's 3 or 4 different lines of the vegan products that we've looked into. The most expensive is Kyle Cushman's vegan line, Veganics, which are fantastic. We've gotten giant yields and everything on them, but they're super expensive. And we cannot sell lower than cost. So it makes this whole business very interesting that we're trying to do it more expensive and top shelf, but is in a weird ideology. We're not trying to push out just crap product in a huge amount, which is a lot of what other people did, which isn't working with the recreational market now. The recreational stores don't want that.
Really? So, but wouldn't like tourists not know the difference?
That's true. And so there's 2 different ways that you can show them the difference is when you have clear packaging, and packaging is another thing you have to get into. You have to have child-proof packaging and everything else with the 502. You have to also have, you give them like a sample container that has built-in sniff things because they can't touch the weed or look at it. It all has to be sealed. So when you have one with a sniff container where you pull off the top and sniff it, you can tell what the weed smells like. You can have a little description of how you grew it, and you can have a synopsis of your company and everything going behind it for the growing process, which if you're really advertising out of state and in social media, you can draw in a small amount of people who want your product at certain stores. And so if we have 5% of the population that is vegan, vegetarian kind of a thing, and we have one store that carries it, and we talk through social media like the Spokane Vegan Society, the Washington Vegetarian Vegan Society, those people really like the idea of a product and will push people to that store, and they might get a lot more business just from having our one weird product on the shelf. What was your original question? I got talking again.
So, like me, if I went into a store, I wouldn't know the difference between what is a good product or what is one that was, like you said, where they just grew like a billion plants and just sort of put out crap product. Wouldn't a lot of your tourists not know the difference between good and bad, making it just a money game for storefronts?
That's what it was at first, but we've noticed there's a lot of people buying in-state as well. Tourism seems to be a big part of it, and like all people, tourists seem to be lower class, middle class, and upper class. So the $15 a gram, which is like the cheapest price you see anywhere here, which is still super high compared to other prices, is the low-end product, and it may be $3 a gram comparable for medical and black market right now, but people are still willing to pay it. So if you're willing to pay that much for a product already, and it's your only time in the state, you're visiting for a few days, and you could be like, well, I can try any of these like 30 or 40 different strains and brands of product on the shelf. You might be willing to grab that higher end one just to try it out. People grab grams of each different variety, and if you have a different it gets interesting because there's a lot of different niches to get into, and we want to try getting into it before the markets stabilize, because this, I think, will be the end goal of microbrews, an equivalent for weed. And the large scale producers, I'll tell you why. This isn't working for retail shops. Retail shops bought up a ton of this product when it was originally much higher in the state, and they're having a hard time selling these products that were originally higher end price but lower end product. And now that the price is steadily going down and stabilizing, they can't just get rid of this weed. They have to make a profit for their stores. They can't sell it all.
And it's completely perishable.
Yeah, that's just another thing. People are really worried about freshness, because if they get a lot of your product, they can't keep it on the shelves for very long if it's going down quality steadily. So there is expiration dates and stuff in this stuff for it being a few months out and not being the same quality.
Is there like a if you go to a recreational shop, is there like a buy one get one free on like stuff that they're about to toss out?
I've never seen that so far, and the way that the state works, you have to sell your product for more than you bought it for, or more than you put into it. So you have to sell what you got. It's so stupid.
So there's literally forcing it, like, you have to make money on whatever you've got in, no matter what. That's kind of the point. That's kind of the point that they're making there. Is
which what that does is that pushes out the mom and pop, because
it really does.
Your systemic loss, you're anytime you buy an inventory, you're going to have a fraction of that inventory you cannot sell, and that's pure loss. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Not only do you lose on shelf space and inventory space, you lose on what it costs you to buy into it. You also lose on the perception of people see. The last time I was in here, that same T-shirt was on the rack, or last time I was in there, it also hurts your perception. So that really hurts your mom and pop. Whereas Walmart, where they have so many customers that they do just sell everything they have, regardless of anything, it doesn't hurt them at all.
I think that's the only thing helping them and getting by that is that there's so few retail shops around, and they had to go in for a lottery for theirs, so a lot of people didn't even get theirs. Like, we only have one shop in Airway Heights where I live. There's only a couple in Spokane proper, and there's only a couple in Seattle. Between that, they're the only place to go to for retail weed if you don't have your medical license or you're out of state. So right now they're moving through that high-end, shittier weed, higher price, shittier weed pretty constantly. But they're worried about keeping too much of that product or buying more of it right now.
How big is the competition between Washington and Colorado for the tourism dollars?
Tourism has us beat in Colorado. They got ahead of the game. Recreational here in Spokane and in Washington State in general is a lot slower. Colorado had it didn't have the tied house rule that Washington does, so they were allowed to move directly into medical, into recreational.
Tied house rule?
Oh. Okay, so here in Washington, so this was a liquor thing for the longest time. The tied house rule in liquor was that you couldn't produce and sell your own liquor in the same building as the same person. You could either produce your liquor and sell it to other locations, or you could sell liquor from other locations. Here, you can only produce or process. You can't retail. When you applied, you had to choose between the two. And we have to have no interactions or business dealings prior to these retail shops we're selling to them. They really want there to be no buddy-buddy systems where you can sell lower amounts and it'd be fine, and it work out in the end because they'll give you some money on the side.
Which in and of itself is kind of a good thing, right? Like, it probably stifles a little bit of growth, but as a consumer, you kind of do want a system like that.
You really do. And I was against it at the first. I was actually against 502 and everything else hugely at first. But now as we're seeing it kind of unfold, there being separations between producer, processor, and retailer means there's 3 separate kinds of businesses that are growing at the same kind of rate. And when the federal legalization opens up, you're going to have people who are really specialized at doing a few things, probably tackle the larger markets. But the shitty thing is there's a 25% tax tier on each tier. So when producer sells to processor, 25% tax. When processor sells to retail, 25% tax. And when retail sells to customer, 25% tax, as well as 25% federal tax, as well as sales tax. So they're taxing us at every level.
Which we're talking about a purely recreational product, so it's fine, right? Like tax that's all going to come out of the wash. Increasing taxes on alcohol does nothing to affect the usage of alcohol. It's a way to make money, which is fine. Mm-hmm. The people of Washington have decided that. So like when you talk about like prescribed marijuana, there shouldn't be any tax. But okay. Sorry to derail.
No, you're fine.
I just that was one of the few times I realized I just spoke out against a tax. I'm usually the tax,
and he wanted to make sure it was clear. Show. He's for all taxes except on prescription products.
Because this show strongly supports Pfizer. We'll take your money to advertise. Okay. What have your interactions been with? Have you had to interact with law enforcement or the DEA in any part of this?
Yeah, actually, when we were doing medical here, the cops came by. They actually were apparently staking the building out, and they told me they had warrants, and they were like monitoring our building and everything else because they really watch who grows in this state. They have all the local police look into it. But they were really friendly about it because I invited them in because we do follow the law. I showed them all of our plants, how we grew, all of our product, all beneath the legal limits. They gave me a pat on the back. They shook my hand. They asked us if we needed any protection in the future. And we had no issues with the police. Yeah, they've been great.
Wow.
But I think if you're not following the law, they will fuck you over. So I'm worried about that. So we always try to stay within the law, which I hope it will legalize on a bigger scale, and I'm for that. But right now, we're just cowtown.
How much have you spent in legal fees just sort of learning exactly how to be compliant?
We paid a lawyer and an accountant to go over this stuff, probably a few $1,000s just getting their fees and everything else done with. But a lot of time and research was spent into doing this. I actually put together a few applications for 502 for other businesses when I was still getting into it. I wasn't planning to shoot off on my own, but I applied for myself as well during that time period. And I was learning a lot of it around then. I was actually getting paid to go over the law and all the legislation for these other companies who are trying to get into it. So that was where I learned a lot about it.
Right on. So like you sort of became familiar without that. You learned by doing.
I was actually solicited by a medical grower in the state who I was apprenticing under to learn how to grow, and had learned about his dispensary and the weed in the state. And I got caught up on it over that. But I've noticed that you either need a lawyer or a lot of free time, or you're not focusing on other stuff to really do the law side of this. It's really hard. They really made it complicated. And a lot of people won't succeed because of that, I think. And it has been true. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So have you said a lot of people have already failed. Like, what is the success? You know, you have a lot of entrepreneurs like yourself who are jumping into this new industry. Can you sort of speak to like what has been like the success rate of companies who sort of try and get in, and then I think you get where I'm going with that.
Oh yeah. Well, I think if you really like to grow weed and love the industry just in general, you stick with it, and I think in the end you'll probably have a profitable business. But if someone's offering you $250,000 before you even have your license for it, and you're an entrepreneur willing to do other things for money, that's a pretty quick turnaround on your profit that you can put into other stuff. And so I think a lot of the entrepreneurs went that route.
Which that is an insane turnaround on profit.
It's so much money.
That's like I know if you gave me $250,000, so Obama takes his half, right? So like we're talking 125 take home. Okay, that is I could easily live off that for what, 3 or 4 years.
Oh, right. Or reinvest even 2/3 of that and start another company.
Or just take half. Live off that for 2 years. Okay, right? Like, I mean, you've already paid your taxes on it. You know, you're not living well. It's like a minimum wage job, right? But you just invest the other half. You know, that's an insane. That's so much money, and your investment was $1,000.
It's an unrealistic because no one knew how much these would be worth, and that 30-day window was opened up very early into this before a lot of people even knew about it or knew it was going on because they don't stay up to date on local law, which I think is so important for people to keep up on if they're really interested in their state's business dealings or getting into something on the state level. Anyone who got into this just kind of dabbling in it or interested in it, it's very, very tempting to sell out right away. But again, going into this, you can turn around 4/5 of what you put into this will be hugely profitable. I did that math wrong. Whatever you put into this and if you do it well, you can make more money than whatever anyone's offering you. But the amount of work that you have to do for this is huge, and the amount of staying up on local law, changes in the industry, it's a full-time gig, and it's never ending. It always changes, and a lot of people just are not up for that, and that's where a lot of people stop doing it right away because, heck, the zoning alone reason for not doing this. You would have to buy a new land, you'd have to get a lease, all within zoned areas within a city, specifically small parts of a city, if you want to do this in the city limits. Most of the counties in Washington, it is still not illegal, but there's moratoriums not allowing you to grow, which is originally what happened to us. In Colville County in Washington is where we originally started our application, but there's a moratorium up there preventing us from becoming processor producers in that area that would limit it, not only our ability to get our license in time, but future business, would they be messing with it a lot because it is a statewide legal thing, and they thought it'd be fine for that. But there was some state attorney decidings that local counties will have the ability to lock businesses out of their area, and so that alone, where we had to change locations, almost sank us. We almost thought of it quickly at the end.
And unfortunately, you know, that's really inconvenient, but that's kind of the right thing to do, right? Like if an area doesn't want that around, they shouldn't, you know, I don't know.
Mad Bro Radio, sponsored by the government of any place ever. Davis is sure to defend you, government, no matter what you do at any time. He will. But really, if you think about it.
Okay, so the example I was going to use is Jack Daniels is in I forget what the county is in Tennessee. You can't buy Jack Daniels in the county where Jack Daniels is made.
Why?
Oh yeah.
It's a dry county. Because
that's so silly. At that point.
I didn't even know there were still dry counties. I thought that was some.
Oh, I
Dude,
lived in a
school
few.
I actually think it's a majority of the counties in the country are still dry.
Okay, define dry for me. Maybe I'm not understanding this.
You cannot purchase alcohol within county limits. You can possess. You can consume.
Whoa, and the majority of counties, is this one of those bullshit R. Davis facts?
Okay, look at a state like South Dakota and think about how many counties are in South Dakota. Okay,
what? I don't know.
Think of how small town and like there's counties in South Dakota where like 40 people live there.
When I think of a small town, I think of alcoholism. That goes hand in hand.
Well, see, it's funny. Even if it's a dry county, people get alcohol. People get weed. People
yeah.
Well, they want it. They'll
it.
get it.
So what gives? I just don't I didn't realize there's still even such a thing.
Yeah, well,
see,
okay. What among those same people that you're thinking of? What's the most popular style of music? It's country music, right?
Fueled by alcohol and dogs.
Yeah. What's one?
And love.
And
what's one of the most successful? What's one of the most successful country hits of all time? Beer Run. Garth Brooks.
Ring of Fire.
Oh, Christ.
Beer Run.
So we're getting. You're saying a Garth Brooks song should have told me that there are still dry. I don't listen to. I never even knew that was a song. And a beer run to me would be fucking trying to avoid the cops while you're getting to Casey's General Store in fucking Reasoner, Iowa. 1:35 in the morning.
No, beer runs when you drive to the other county where.
Now. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So
and you go there and you buy like half the liquor store and then you come back and sell it.
Yep. It creates a black market whenever they don't allow us to do something in certain states, and that's what I'm worried about, because where you don't see these recreational shops opening and having a supply or new businesses starting up, you have all the old-timey growers and all the people who were into it before just kind of perpetuating the black market, and they're, yeah.
Got that dude on the corner with the Jinko jeans and the Circa t-shirt, tennis shoes. Hey, shorty, need an
It's
aid?
risk and money. The more risk you take, the more money you can make in this country. Pure and simple. If you're willing to avoid the laws, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's all risk.
Okay, this is still relevant. Have both of y'all seen the 2 Chainz and Nancy Grace interview?
Oh, every single person that's ever seen a pot plant has re-Facebooked that. It's everything. On my timeline, it's all just 2 Chainz. Nancy. I haven't watched it yet. But
You haven't watched it?
No. And we're still, we don't have
linked.
the technology to put it up here.
I am requiring both of you, as soon as we're done, go watch this, okay?
Nancy Grace.
I'm going to spoil it, okay? The very end of it. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make it any
Hold on,
less
can I
awesome.
guess? Can I guess first?
Okay, go ahead and guess.
Okay. I already know this much. He's pro-marijuana. She's against it.
Yes.
I don't even think I need to guess. Anybody could guess this. Anybody. She's just he comes out looking very intelligent, which is rare for someone that has a number and then Chainz as their moniker.
Someone who has multiple rap albums.
Well, you know, Lupe Fiasco. He's an intelligent guy.
No, he's an idiot.
Well, fuck off. We'll get into that later. And she just looks like a complete douchebag because that's what she is, I guess. Never mind. I don't really have any plot line things I could guess.
So
anyone who's sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you.
No, you go. You
anyone
guess.
Anyone who seems to be against pot in this day and age doesn't have a good argument for it that I've noticed.
Right. I mean,
it's pure and simple. That's pretty much where it ends in the beginning of it.
If Davis lists off anything verbatim, like quotes that she said, it's not going to be like, oh, what a shocker. That came out of left field. Where did she get that one? There's nothing new about the argument on that side of things. There's nothing new coming out that's like, well, wait, oh, shit, somebody died yesterday of an overdose? Fuck, she got him. You know, that's never going to happen. So anyway, what spoil us?
So you want the whole plot line or just the greatest part of it?
Let's do a mixture of the two. Let's call it the greatest plot line. Like, the greatest hits mixed with I want the whole lineup still, but just the greatest parts of it.
So Nancy Grace is talking about a story in which there was a footage of a mother getting her 2-year-old high. Okay, which terrible parent. That's not pot's fault.
Let me just pause that for 1 second. Cannabinoids are found in mother's breast milk, so the kids get it from an early age on. Well, I mean, I'm from a German family. I started drinking very young at like the age of 5 or 6, 7, 8. Like my family owned a bar in Wisconsin, and we were allowed to drink, and it was okay by state law because you're allowed to drink with your parent if you're under the age. So what does it come down to for what you're allowed to do for your child? You can do a lot of things that will mess them up, but they're not technically illegal.
Maybe shouldn't do, yes.
Yeah, or malnutrition of all things. Like there's a lot of things that happen to most kids.
Feeding them McDonald's chicken nuggets 6 days out of the 7 days.
Yeah, a lot of things. Sorry, continue with the story. I just want to interrupt.
Well, I'm sorry. I think that it's fairly. I think the science is fairly conclusive that marijuana exposure prior to the age of, I believe it's 14 in that area. It's even older. That can have a severe and detrimental effect on growth and mental development.
Well, and
so. The psychoactive forms. I don't know about the other cannabinoids. I just know that studies about
THC.
Yeah, have shown that like early exposure can have a significant impact of stunting growth and mental development. So, and and there's similar things with alcohol, where I really don't like the laws that say you can drink with your parents if you're under the age, because you just legalize child abuse. Like part of a parent's job is to foster growth and provide an environment in which a development can be fostered, and allowing them legally to introduce things that we know are harmful. If a parent said, "Oh, you can drink that rat poison," okay, I mean, like, obviously it's illegal, but we say, "Oh, you can have that alcohol." Well, we know that's messing them up.
Okay, usually I disagree with you just to be the devil's advocate. I'm not nearly as heart bleedy as you are, but in that argument there, so consider how many parents in the country, what percentage are just fucking morons? 70?
I'm
80?
Hold on. No.
Well,
I'm gonna be a lot more realistic and say like 7.
7%?
More.
No.
Oh, hold on.
No.
You're being realistic?
Define moron. We have different definitions of moron.
Okay. Let's just say. Should we go IQ? I mean, how do we? Okay, you know what? We're not gonna debate what's a moron and what isn't. I'm just gonna say what I have to say. 70 to 80% are probably not doing the best job that they could do to raise a child, and probably doing things that are detrimental.
Completely disagree.
Okay, well, that's fine. You could be wrong, and they're doing it. It doesn't matter if it's okay for you to drink with your parent. They're like, here, have a Coors or two. When you're 12 or 14 or whatever, or if they're like just doing other shitty parent things aside from encouraging alcohol. There's all sorts of things you can do that are legal that will completely fuck up a kid's life, or give them bad habits, or
creationist mentality of children, of teaching creationism. That kind of stuff is maybe more detrimental to anything you could introduce. But at the same time,
hold on. There's I know what you're saying when you say teaching creationism.
I came from a very religious family too, so
you're talking about like New Earth or Young Earth theory and everything. In and of itself, creationism is not entirely incompatible with science.
That's true.
So when you say that term, I take huge issue with that. Someone who fully endorses any and all science anyone can show me, while also believing in an intelligent design, they're not incompatible worldviews at all.
Right, okay.
The closest thing to it is deism, which nearly all the founding fathers of this country were. I mean, almost none of them were like church every Sunday Bible thumpers. Almost all of them believed, we have this universe, and at some point before the universe started, there was God there who effectively like made a clock, and then he just sort of started the gears turning, and everything else is a result of that gear framework he set up. But there's no new intervention. There's no interventions going on. It was all set in motion. So evolution happened. The planet didn't happen. In our observance, it's just we're just learning more about all the gears. So I you say that, and that's something I always take issue with. So I just completely derailed the conversation.
Yes,
Matt,
no, it's okay.
Matt, I would say we only recoil and we only find it so disgusting when we see parents abusing their children because they are the exception to the rule. I would say that about 75 to 80% of parents are, to the best of their ability, doing everything they know how.
That's it right there.
Good.
That's it right there. To the best of their ability. You're absolutely right.
Which is not what you were saying.
And that upset. Okay, and that no, I was saying
that's not what you're saying.
No, if you're a fucking idiot and you're raising a kid to the best of your ability, you're not doing an adequate job to raise another intelligent member of society because you're a fucking idiot. I don't care if it's to the best of your ability or not. A hamster is to the best of its ability could try and raise me as a baby, and shit's not going to fly.
I completely reject your premise because human beings on a basic level are designed to procreate. So people have an innate ability to raise children. Okay, so but whether or not people are in the best of their ability raising them to a standard that you have somehow set up, they might fit outside of that, but most people in society aren't raising murderers. They're not raising people who steal things. They're not raising people who are generally dishonest.
They're not raising well-informed.
But who are you to determine what is well-informed? Like
somebody
is anyone to determine what you can or cannot give to your child at that rate? Then, if it affects their consciousness and their place in this world, and so then you could give alcohol to a child. It wouldn't be child abuse then under that same kind of mindset and everything.
No, it absolutely would, because we're talking.
Why would it?
Because we're talking about doing something which causes harm. Okay, so like,
what is harm though? It gets really weird when you start thinking about what is harm, what is good. It all depends on how much of a functioning adult you are. In
that same logic, you let the child wants to try out what the bleach tastes like, okay, and you allow them to. What is the difference? So I you didn't give a verbal response, but but the look on your face says, "Oh yeah," you would say allowing a child to drink bleach would be a form of child abuse, correct?
Correct. So let's. you're equating.
So where are we drawing the line between bleach and
that's a great question.
Alcohol? I think.
If you were a kid, but you could probably put alcohol way, way further away from cannabis as far as things that would harm a child, and bleach so much further than things that would harm them more.
I'm not a scientist, so I don't know. I know both have been shown to be harmful at early ages as far as development and stuff. What is the harm limit at which you draw? I think that both alcohol and marijuana would be to the too harmful on my scale. And I'm saying on the scale I have in my head between what you should be allowed to let your kids do and what you shouldn't, I think that both of those would fall on the shouldn't, just because they are things that letting kids smoke weed is not vital to their existence. You know, like you're not teaching them a grand life lesson. By doing without getting into some sort of yoga nonsense. No offense.
We both had the same look on our face. No, but okay. I do agree. I don't necessarily think that kids or parents should be giving alcohol or marijuana to their kids at an early age or whatever. But I think that saying that that's a higher level. I think, okay, I'm still coming back to where I said that a vast majority of parents are not doing an adequate job. I just can't believe that you disagree with that.
What are you calling adequate? Like, you have to define what that is.
Well, technically, you could have your child be beat up, abused horribly, and they turn out to be an amazing individual. But while they're going through those things, it might be the most horrible thing in the world. Like, I've had step-parents and everything else who were very badly abused. It turned out really well. So they are still functioning members of society. They can still do stuff. But the worst atrocities that people go through, they still can survive through.
But those are the exceptions. I mean, it's this. We idolize those people who have those great backstories, the same way we idolize people who grew up poor and are rich. But if you look at most rich people weren't born poor. Most poor people were born poor. Okay, like what we notice those, we idolize them because they are the exception. Okay, so just because, hey, this is a thing that exists doesn't mean that we get to generalize that and say that, oh well, we shouldn't act upon this entire group.
Okay, so David, somebody gives their kid a beer at 12 and drinks with them, or somebody doesn't physically abuse, but raises them in a way that they get emotionally fucked up. Whatever way a parent needs to do that, not providing what they need to provide as a parent. You know, so I mean. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where do you? Because you were talking, you compared the alcohol or the marijuana consumption to drinking bleach, which is.
No, I didn't. I did not. I said I put bleach on the far end of a scale, okay, and I said where on that scale? What? No. Oh yeah. Okay.
That's
yeah.
a comparison.
Comparing it as saying. You said equate.
I said compare.
Did he say equated? It's recorded.
I said compared.
You said I equated.
It's recorded, and I said compared, and then you said no, you didn't. So you compared that to
Your implication.
I'm not no. My implication was my statement. I only stated what I wasn't trying to imply anything. I was just stating what you said. So
there's murdering people, then there's hitting them, then there's leaving them alone. You put them all on the scale. Yeah, I just compared hitting someone with murdering someone.
Right. Yeah, bleach, murder, hitting somebody, alcohol. I get it. So what my point here was, how do the two scales compute there? How does beating your kid, not being there for them emotionally, not teaching them what they need to know, or teaching them shit that will warp their mind and fuck them up for life, or raising them in a fucked up, raising a completely racist child or not raising a child that doesn't know anything at all, or not raising a child. How does that compare to the bleach or the alcohol or the marijuana?
I think there's three things that would affect a child in development and everything else. One would be if they're educated properly. I mean, if you have a child that's illiterate, that can't read or write, that you didn't read to when they were younger, they'll be fucked up for society. If you fuck them up with drugs or anything else like that, they'll be fucked up to a different level in society. But man, if you can't read into your 30s, you're going to be fucked in this existence. So it all matters if you can function in society or function as a human. And functioning as a human seems to be anyone who's lived a long enough age can still function as a human. I mean, you can go to jail and everything else, but that's part of society still. And now it's all about how well your child can function in society versus just functioning in general. And I think that there's a billion ways to mess up your kid. There's a billion ways to make them good, but because we don't know the future, there's no real good way of helping your child out other than trying to diminish any kind of harmful effects to them, but at the same time realizing there's going to be a lot of harmful effects and everything else in life. And maybe if they've experienced some things earlier in life, they won't fall into it in their 30s and fall apart after that, like alcohol and everything else. I've had people become alcoholics in their 30s who never drank before in their life. And I've had people who drank all throughout their childhood that never wanted to touch a drink in their 20s to 30s. And I don't know. It's really weird. You never really know how a kid's going to turn out. It gets hard to kind of decide what would be good or what would be bad for them.
But we can kind of play the odds.
We can.
Like we have a pretty good idea that if you beat the hell out of your kid every night, he has higher likelihood of being incarcerated, higher likelihood of acting out violently, he's going to get lower grades. Like we can play the odds on things that we are pretty sure are going to result in a lower functioning on a society and, like you said, person. Now to address, Matt, your question specifically, you asked where on that scale does all those forms of what I think a reasonable person would say is abuse. Okay, if you raise a kid to be in the Klan, you have that's psychological abuse.
I wouldn't. Okay, yeah, that is abuse. I'm not really looking for it on the abuse scale as much as I'm looking at how the abuse equates to being a proper parent, or you know what I mean?
Functioning adult.
How they will become a functioning adult, but how the abuse, quote unquote, like say it's giving a kid a beer at 12. That's not to say that you're drinking with them every weekend, but a kid that drinks with you at 12.
The question you asked was where on the scale does
how do those relate? Yeah, you're right.
Abuse fall. Yeah. I would so if I put there's the drink bleach on, just for an example. There's the clear no one on earth would say that's not abuse. Okay.
They'll die or be maimed for life over here.
Okay. On the far left. Okay, and then we put our line, this imaginary line that I'm making up that separates abuse and not abuse. Okay. I'm gonna say that like a little to the abuse and you're going to have marijuana, a little bit more in, you're going to have alcohol.
At what age?
A little bit more. I don't know what the age for stunting growth is. I think it's in the 16 or 17 range.
25 is when your brain pretty much stops developing to the adult stage, right around there. So really, like the legal limit on alcohol and weed should be more than 21, 25-ish, even maybe even later. into adulthood if we never want to have those affect the developing child.
No, but we're not talking about children. As a society,
Oh.
we've decided that a person who's 18 is an adult and can make their own decisions. And if someone who's 18, if you're between 18 and 25 and you would like to make those choices, as a society, we've set that limit and decided that's when you get to decide.
I think that.
But you can't rent a car until 25. Sorry.
But that is fucked up. You can't get
that's
hotel
not a
rooms
law,
until
though.
a certain.
Yeah.
But I think it is.
Not.
I
Here
think
it's just a practice because of insurance.
if we are going to decide that 18, first off, is where you can go to jail for life, you can go to overseas and go to war and die for the country stuff. I think that should be where you can drink and do whatever you want to do. But also, I think that being said, everybody needs to be more well informed about it.
I agree. Everyone, and
I
even having a kid is a problem.
I didn't
you
read
better having a kid.
anything about the whole your brain isn't fully matured until 25 or any of that shit until I'd already been drinking and smoking and doing all of these other things. And now I'm 23 years old and I'm like, oh, well, it's good to know now, but I'm already fucked. Like, thank you for the information. So I think that needs to be. I think all of that. I mean, sex education and the drug stuff that they doesn't really even do anything anyway in high school should be more effective. I don't know how they should change. Well, I could give them some pointers, but it should be much younger. It should start out because that's more important, really. If you're comparing algebra to this could dramatically change how your brain will develop for the rest of your life if you do it. Let's put a little bit more focus on that. I
think all knowledge for kids should be accessed. So all knowledge should be accessed.
But it should be pushed. I mean, it's.
So what I know, I study crime. Okay, and a very huge part of crime is drugs. And
lots of mystery novels.
Are they drugs because there's a black market, though, because they are not legalized? Or is there any legal part of that? I mean, a law is weird. Laws don't only seem to be placed by people, and we make our laws up when we had less information than we do now.
Yes, and laws also change as a result of more information.
Very slowly.
And for the purpose of studying drugs and crime, we look at all drugs. That includes Tylenol.
Prescription ones. Yeah.
Anything that alters your mind state is when you look at the effect of drugs and crime, you sort of factor all of them in, not just your illegal drugs. So one of the things that we know, every single empirical study that's ever been done on it shows that early childhood training in drugs produces more drug use and abuse later in life.
I went through DARE, and now I run a shop. No, so yay, DARE.
That is the test example, okay? DARE has massively higher rates of drug use, drug abuse, and drug addiction compared to children who are not exposed to that program, okay? We know that if you try and teach kids about drugs at an early age, it has the opposite effect, okay? So we shouldn't be pushing this drug education. We shouldn't be pushing sexual education until we're talking about sexually matured children who are like 14. You need to explain to them how to do it safely, but we shouldn't be pushing drug education on younger kids.
I thought it was out of place when I was younger, when we had no interest in it and there was nothing about it, and we were like given all this information and like class time devoted to it, and we could have been learning other stuff. It makes you interested, though, because it's this thing that's very big in our society, and it's always been a huge part of humans in general, and made you interested in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's bad. Sorry, go ahead.
So, and just to go back and finally sort of finish answering the question, if I have the spectrum of abuse, things that fall within abuse and maim and kill, I would put psychological, emotional, and physical abuse to the more severe side of abuse, but all of those fall within abuse and neglect. Excuse me, I should say abuse and neglect.
neglect, because that would be the information side. Because if you neglect
Yeah.
information, you're neglecting your children at the same
Yeah,
time.
if you don't teach your kid how to read, that is a severe form of neglect in 2015. This isn't the 1800s anymore. Like, your kid needs to know how to read.
What was the literacy rate then?
I don't.
We need a historian in here.
Right.
History is weird.
Call up the
I would take a guess that academia was not really concerned about the literacy rate
They
of the
were writing
farmer at
letters
that
to
time.
each other, and if you read those letters, they seem
No, who was writing letters to each other?
Good point.
Soldiers?
Good point. That's true. No, there's letters from soldiers and shit, and you would think no offense to soldiers. Never mind.
Who
They
were
were
the
brilliant
soldiers?
people.
Who were
Well,
the
they were
soldiers
people.
writing letters?
Well, there was people who were educated in the home. We adopted the German kind of education system recently, and before it was just taught parent to child, parent to child, parent to child. And then we started realizing that we could teach people based on all the information we had with people who are devoted to teaching that. And now I think with the internet, it'll go in a different direction because we can get all the information we want without worrying about schools and teachers from here. And it's going to be different. The future's going to be very different than it is right now.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
to think about.
And to finish this thought, the soldiers who were writing letters were the exceptional ones. The reason
Oh, that's
why
true. Yeah, we had the letters.
The reason why those letters were preserved and not just like thrown away, these were the exceptional examples. There's not your rank and file dude who was given a pair of boots and a gun was probably not literate.
I want to see the picture that someone sent to their family that's like a crudely drawn picture and like stencil. Like, here's what's going on in the war, man. Like write XOXO above it.
One color, yeah.
And one color.
An interesting thing.
John was shit.
There's a lot of like letters that we still have, and they're like really eloquently written during like the American Revolution or during the Civil War. And they're eloquently written, and they make like these really poignant points, and they have this real cool like social commentary. That's because they were writing them knowing that other people other than their person they were sending it to was going to read it. There were going to be people along the way who would have to hand carry that letter to that person. There wasn't a postal service we could.
So the hand carrier would just bust them open and read them?
Oh, of course, dude. The Pony Express. Like, what's the person going to do in their free time? Also, a lot of times, if you're in a war, realize America.
Superior officers saw it too and stuff. Yeah.
Well, not just that. Like, what are real famous letters between John and Abigail Adams? Okay, those are really famous and those are incredibly well written. Both the ones written by John and by Abigail, and they were written. They were a terrorist cell. Like, people forget. Americans
were terrorists.
Yeah, like they were terrorists, and you weren't sending them through some sort of formalized mail system. You were handing it to your friend who knew a friend knew a friend who was going to get on a horse and go to someone who knew someone who was going to get on a horse. Okay, it was real informally done, and every step along that way, someone would be reading that letter because everyone gets curious. If I tell you to take a bag from here to here, you're going to peek inside the bag.
Right, but if you tell me don't, you know what? That's what Al Qaeda's doing right. They're dedicated to their leaders. I bet none of the 9/11 terrorists would have read Osama bin Laden's letters. You think?
I think whenever you have something that's personally written to someone, or that like when we type in the forums and stuff too, and something you really want to get a point across, or really want to put something good out there, would take a lot more time and effort, and having something that can be understood well by other people, and it will be something that we'd be happy to have out there for a long time. Just like if we get sent emails or everything else that are more personable or we save them and hold on to them. I can see that point too. The more meaningful ones and the more poignant ones have lasted through history, because if you find this thing and read through it, and yeah, I can see that. It's good.
And of course, I say that having no actual knowledge. That's just
we're just talking here. Yeah, I don't know anything about any of this. I'm bad.
So, okay, let's. I have one more question about the pot. So, what like a normal person who consumes, what's the average usage?
It seems like newer people are fine with their 1 to 2 grams. Like that's more than enough to try out the substance in a huge amount. You haven't built up a tolerance to it yet. But the heavy users are still black market and medical users. You don't buy that weed at recreational shops.
Okay, just forget about recreation, black market, medical. Like, like just your average person who buys it, whether it's from Jose or Jose at the store. Yeah, I had to walk that one back.
Yeah. Way to cover your ass there, Davis.
Jose at the store.
Or Jose at the store, not to say.
I've met some Jose's
anything about that name.
No, I guess it really does come down to the individual user, but I see a lot of people buy eighths a lot of the time,
how much
or a
is
couple
that?
grams, an eighth of an ounce. So
3.5 grams.
There you go.
I'm like the middle between novice and expert.
Well, I guess just because of tolerance increase, like if you smoke a little bit, you smoke a little bit more, you're going to need a little bit more unless you take tolerance breaks. And people who the usage, it really depends on the person. It really does.
Okay, I guess my question is more like, what is a standard, like what is one joint? Like you can say grams all day. Like I don't know what that means.
Well, it depends on how big. That depends too. How big do you roll the joint?
Yeah, you can roll a blunt that is like 20 grams, or you can have a little tiny spliff that's like 0.5 grams, and that's good enough.
Okay, so I go down to the head shop, and most of the water pipes, as they have to call them,
water pipes.
They all have like what looks like a real standard size. What are they called? Stems.
Bowl where you put the weed in.
Yeah.
Bowl.
What's like this? No, I know that term. But
half gram. About half gram in a bowl.
Really? So that's like $7 worth?
Half gram for recreational? Yep. And that's more than enough. Like, someone won't smoke an entire bowl in one sitting if they're really new to this. They'll take 1 or 2 hits and be like, I'm high, and push it away. And they're not really like willing to dive into a really deep high because it does make you anxious and stuff if you're not used to it in your system. Or it like for the other day, it caused me a lot of anxiety when I smoked a few gravity bong hits. So it still hits me that same kind of way, even though I smoke a lot of weed. If you ramp up to the same amount that a novice would for the THC can handle in the system, you'll reach that same uncomfortable high level. So people want to stay away from that and stay under it usually when they're trying it out. And there's the other end of the spectrum where you just fucking go all out and get fucked up on it and see the hallucinations and everything else, which I've done too.
Tell me about dab.
Dabs are too strong for any novice. I would just say that straight up. That concentrates are scary to get into when you're first starting. That flower alone, unless you're doing a very tiny small amount of dabs, are probably the way to go. But you never know the potency of stuff. So if you have a large amount of the same kind of weed, you can play with certain amounts of it, see how much you like. Or if you have dabbing material, which is oils and waxes and hash, all those kinds of things, you can take tiny amounts of those and try them out, but you can go overboard with those really fast.
Well, but like, what is it? Like, what is?
So basically, you get the.
Yeah.
So
I love that you like those so much. You're like yeah.
I don't know where to start. It's just like
start.
So
yeah.
When you when you grow your plant from start to finish through veg, through flower, and you have the end flower product, you take off the largest buds and you usually put them in a jar and cure them for like another 10 days or however long you cure them. All of the smaller nugs, which are small flowers at the bottom part of the plant that don't grow as big, get taken out and they go through a processing part where it is usually worked with butane or CO2 or dry ice or ice. Each one will make a different kind of product. Between like ice becomes bubble hash, dry ice becomes dry ice hash, butane becomes a type of oil, and CO2 becomes a type of oil. They all have different effects on you and are basically everything from the plant that can be used for psychoactive purposes. All the cannabinoids get pushed out into a small concentrate, and then people usually take a little bit of that, heat it up on a nail, and take a big hit of that. And it's like a very concentrated form of the flower. All the psychoactive parts are taken out. You don't get any plant material in it. But the issue with that is people usually use weed that is powdery mildew covered or full of spider mites and turn them into concentrates for dabbing material when they can't use it for anything else. That's the number one place for concentrates, I've noticed. When people don't have good weed, they turn it into dabbing material, which does take a lot of it out, but you never know what is really in that oil unless you have like a chemical screening testing lab or something like that.
I mean, but I eat meat, so who cares about a little mite?
They can cause effects
for American
health.
No, like I understand you're
effects.
vegan, but a little bit of little spider, who cares?
Well, if you smoke a lot of it over time, like say if you smoked a bowl of flies, that can't be good for your health.
Isn't scorpion tails like a thing you can actually get high off of?
Yeah, apparently you can make some kind of scorpion mix thing like that happens in Navajo reservations.
Yeah, like you tear off their tails and just smoke the tails.
You make a little mix of it. I've heard you can get high on so many things. I think cannabis is one of those things that you don't get too many bad health effects from, especially if you're a mature adult. I think that for safety things for us, it's almost the safest impairment you can go with these days.
Certainly seems that way.
There's probably better ones out there we haven't learned yet. We'll learn them.
I don't know. I feel like we probably stumbled upon them if they were there.
Oh no, there's hundreds of different cannabinoids. We only use the one or two psychoactive ones, but a lot of them could have different effects on you because those are the ones that we're focused on for selective breeding. Also with LSD and all these other ones, we just learned about those in the last 50 years, didn't we? Like they're very recent in history. So every year we learn about new things that affect the brain. I mean, if you could isolate what makes you feel good from healthy food on top of other stuff, I'm sure you could find a way to make that into a drug. If that's just an example, I have no idea.
What makes you feel good from healthy food? How dare you? You know what? You know what I had for dinner tonight? I went to Wendy's and got a Baconator. You know how good I felt?
Deliciously wonderful.
Yeah, like
shit's so delicious.
Like isolate what feels good about that. Like screw kale. Okay, like
I eat kale char every day. I hate it and I love it.
Give me the Baconator feeling, and I will become an addict.
I think I could. My dinner might have rivaled yours there, Davis.
Go for it.
I had.
Was it on a pretzel bun?
Honestly,
mine was
you know
on a
what?
pretzel bun.
You know what? Had I held out on my hunger and not tapped out early, I would have probably ended up at a Wendy's or something. But I had 2 quarter-pound jalapeno Oscar Mayer hot dogs, roller grill style, from a truck stop, relish, ketchup, mayo, and a bag of Doritos.
Disgusting.
Spicy nacho, not that regular shit.
I'm having a fake bacon sandwich with all the fixings here in a little bit. I can't cook worth shit. My girlfriend cooks a fuck ton, so that's what makes it good. I miss meat and stuff. I never stopped eating it because I don't like it. I try to mimic this flavor and everything else now. To each their own.
Then why are you a vegan?
The environmental side of it, a lot of it, because I was going to school for environmental science, I learned how much resources were put into producing each pound of meat versus pound of other stuff, and I realized I could probably live without eating it. I wanted to give it a shot, so I went cold turkey, and it was kind of a rocky, insane couple of first years as I was figuring out nutrition, because I went literally probably insane from not having any of the proper nutrition for a couple of years. Now it's getting way, way better, because I talked to Rhonda Patrick, I tried fixing up all of my necessary needs and been feeling really good after that. But
say that again.
The flavors
talk to who?
Rhonda Patrick.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick. I was on her. I was donating to her site for a few months, 6 months or so, and she had a podcast with her top donators a few times each month, and she gave me a lot of good nutritional advice on veganism and everything else. So I'd really tried to get all of my stuff squared away, but really it comes down to, if I didn't have enough food to eat here and it was the end of the world, I'd be out there with my gun killing and eating shit left and right just to survive, and I'd be happy doing so because, yeah.
Okay, so from an environmental side, I'm sorry, I just realized I interrupted you, but from an environmental science perspective, if everyone just stopped eating meat, that would throw our ecosystem way off, though, right?
No.
Isn't the idea to if you're talking about energy consumption, it's eat as much meat as we did prior to the increase in energy consumption?
I think because we've focused a lot of our meat production in certain areas, like in Texas and California, where the droughts and when we didn't have enough resources in that state killed them all, and not all, but most of them. and a lot of the resources going to the states are out of place. Like we don't have animals naturally in environments that they can sustain the animal. It's usually a bunch all packed together that we have to ship things into these things and sustain them that way.
When I say ecosystem, I'm talking about like the world and our ability to inhabit it and global warming and such. Because is a lot of pollution when you said energy consumption, I thought you meant like the pollution aspect of how much oil and stuff is used specifically to raise and process all that meat. I thought that's what you were referring to because
oil.
Like I know cows are a huge producer of greenhouse gases.
Like, well, most of the food we grow goes right to cattle, goes right to meat consumption and everything else. But most of what we grow actually goes towards a more inefficient system where we turn that bulk protein and everything else into meat in the end game. And the water consumption is also a huge one. We don't have a lot of fresh water and everything else that you could stretch your amount of food produced comparatively to meat so in the favor of plant products and everything else. And that's one of the main reasons I did it. Also, just where I was in Wisconsin, where I was going to school at the time, you would see the large feedlots and the large shit. They're standing in their own shit. There's huge shit piles and everything else that was leaking into the natural water systems and things you just wouldn't get with plant consumption. And that's one of the main reasons I did it.
And I'm not trying to convert you.
Oh, no.
I'm asking.
I've got told this so many times. I've heard this so many times.
And again, I'm asking questions, but all those business practices are a result of a massive increase in consumption of meat, which people went from eating meat maybe twice a week to eating meat 3 times a day, like once with every meal.
Yeah.
Okay.
It became a way
when
more
did that happen?
Consumption. Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
the Green Revolution, when we started creating more food than we can handle.
What were people eating previous? If they were only eating twice a week, what was it? The rest of the meal?
Well, if you have like 10 cows and you have 20 acres and all of the food you create in those 20 acres goes to those 10 cows, for example, that's bad math or whatever. But if you only have 1 cow and 19 acres or whatever of food that's still being produced, you can get way more food for way more people on that plot of land than you could if they were animals. That's one of the big reasons I went over, but I miss meat. I still do. I try to mimic it every time I can.
Yeah, the people were eating a lot more fruits and vegetables, a lot more nuts.
What was around
protein.
you? Yeah,
so it was probably better. People were probably people healthier. I mean, people were dying early. We didn't have modern medicine.
There was a point in there in which the increased meat consumption was healthier, and then we went way beyond that with like McDonald's.
So we hit a point where it was like, oh, okay, we're starting to get better, and then we were like, yeah, fuck yeah, meat, and then we all.
I think it's. When the Industrial Revolution happened, we were able to make guns and able to hunt on a much larger scale. And since everyone was trying to hunt to sustain their diet with meat and everything else, we like decimated the passenger pigeon and a lot of other stuff at the time that we don't have access to for food anymore, which is a major food source for most people in America. I mean, they flew everywhere. There just were no more of it, so we had to get our meat from a different source, and we still liked meat in our palate and everything else. After that, it kind of went into the direction of factory farming in places we could produce as much meat as possible, still sustain everyone after we ran out of natural resources around us. We also stopped doing hunter-gathering as much, and there's a lot of mushrooms, there's a lot of natural foods in the wild we would also get at the same time that we just don't even look at anymore, because why the hell would you eat that when there's a billion other things to eat too? That like we're really into me and my girlfriend met in a wild edibles group where we go out into the wild and we try to find all these edible things and eat them. And there's a lot of food out there that people just don't look at besides meat. And I think we were eating all those alongside everything else we were eating when we were eating smaller amounts of meat with it.
So with that change towards meat, that had a really without having actual numbers, you might know this better than I. I've been led to believe previously that a lot of our meat consumption is more responsible for greenhouse gases. More of our greenhouse gases comes from the massive increase of our breeding in cattle, so we have more cattle producing methane through their flatulence, and also all the energy consumption, all the oil use, all the infrastructure that's in place, transporting, killing. All that meat, it does more than just your everyone's cars on the road in greenhouse gases.
It's a lot of it, yeah.
wouldn't if people went back to only eating meat twice a week, that would drastically cut down in demand for meat and sort of make a lot of those business practices where the cows are standing in 10 feet high piles of shit. It would eliminate that, and it would have be a lot better for the environment. Why, instead of cutting back to like that level, did you just cut meat out altogether? And not just meat, all animal products, right? That's veganism. It's anything that uses an animal in its production is not kosher. Is that correct?
Really, it's weird because even if you have stuff produced from fields and all plant sources shipped to you, there's a lot of death that occurs from field animals and this transportation. And so like, no one is truly vegan on any kind of level. No one in the entire world is. Yeah. It's all just how far down you want to chase that ideology of having less and less resources used for yourself. I mean, I'm starting a business that uses electricity. This is not necessarily the most
coal, homie.
It's all right. That's why we want to get in solar power. It's kind of like what you're willing to sacrifice right now to get to that end goal if you're in this ideology. Like if I do a few steps here, I'll be able to reduce my carbon footprint and resources used in the future by really spending that money wisely on just different projects that will give back for what I take now out of this, which hopefully is only another year of doing this kind of stuff. But I think that anyone who does sorry, to go back to your point, I lost my train of thought. The meat thing is weird because I kind of respected consciousness of other animals, but it gets weird beyond that because there's micro life and things we don't understand about the universe and other stuff still too. And I'm losing the I'm a vegan. This is a good ideology. I'll push forward with this alone because it's flawed still in a lot of what it's going for, I think. And if people are really worried about animals suffering and everything else, there's a billion other places to start besides veganism, but it's a neat way to end a lot of that for yourself. The large scale of everything else, you probably won't affect it or other people as much, but then it's pushing ideologies that I don't feel like pushing on other people to each their own, and I kind of like everyone living their own way.
And that's that's an unfortunate part of the vegan movement, though, right? Like I think you would admit there's a lot of douchebags who are in your club there.
I don't really interact with a lot of other vegans, sadly, because of that. They're all high and mighty, and they're all not doing things that would further the ideology further out of convenience. Like technology, the fact that most vegans I know have a computer presses minerals from all over the world that were a lot of environmental damage in life was displaced because of that.
Not even just animals, okay? Like there's
all life.
Like there's a lot of African children who lost fingers.
Yeah, and people, the suffering. Like we have 10 acres out here besides a 2,000 square foot building. I want all of our food and all of our resources to come out of there over the next year, including our grow mediums and everything else. Because it's not shipped, because it's all local, and because I can monitor what's happening with it, I think that will mitigate more loss of life and be healthier for this environment if I get a proper permaculture going than any other way of living I could. And with this business, between getting solar and getting that set up, I think I'll have a completely sustained local lifestyle, which I think is a near endpoint for my ideology besides going to a point of creating food without any other life involved, which is synthesizing chemicals and everything else from natural materials that have no life whatsoever, which it has to be done with science and everything in the future, which is beyond me. But that's my endpoint. It's a crazy thing to even go down, and I wouldn't recommend it for most people.
And so, like me, if I had to actually like kill the cow before I got a Baconator, I would never be able to do it. Period. I would not be able to
unless you were starving, and then you would have no issue probably doing it. Unless probably a moment there where you're like,
I'd die.
I would starve.
You put David and I
other end
next to the cow, we would die in the same room.
Necessary.
With the cow.
Dude, I would, okay. Again, I get to call. I love calling myself a bleeding heart, but I would hope that by dying, like the cow was able to live longer because I fertilize the grass or whatever.
We fertilize the grass. We have skin cells that feed dust mites. Just by us being alive, we produce life in other ways, in ways we don't fully understand yet.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just saying, like, I could not. I do not believe it is in me to, even if I was starving, to kill an animal for food myself. Now, the people at if Dave from Wendy's is killing pigs every hour, I'm disconnected from that. Okay, so like I could totally be a vegan if I had to actually see the suffering. Okay, which is, I believe, a big part of it.
I know that. Yeah, a lot of people go through that. Like, most people I meet.
If I had to do it or witness it, I'd totally be on your side. I think I would find it a lot more palatable, however, to if we're talking about the environment, to cut back to that twice a week, and say that, and I think that if we're trying to make an environmental movement around a huge source of our greenhouse gases, I think rather than approaching it as, it's really vegans who are sounding that horn right now, and other forms of vegetarians, and they're doing it quite douchey, by the way, when they
yes.
But they do. But a lot of people who are sort of making that point that this is if a lot of people started moving in that direction, it would help the environment. I think it'd be a lot more palatable if you just said, hey, instead of having meat 7 days a week, have meat 5 days a week. Just right there.
Those small changes end up being big things.
If you get a lot of
everyone did it, yeah,
it's a lot more palatable than
you would get a lot more people doing it if you could make it such a broad thing as meat. Fucking 5 days a week instead of 7. I eat meat all day, every day. I mean, so does most people, I think. So if you could just reduce it to that instead of, and I think, like David said, not the majority, but not the majority, but the vocal majority, the people of the vegans that are vegans, ruin it for everybody else. The only people that I know that are vegans in real life make me not like it because I don't like them, because of it. So I think
they're on. Anyone who thinks they're on the right and haven't looked into the issue fully become douchey. And I think that a lot of them haven't even looked into why they're vegan or the full aspects of everything they do and actions they undertake that would harm animals in general. They're not going to the fullest extreme of it. So they're kind of, I don't know, they seem shallow in a lot of ways.
It's fashionable veganism is all it is. I mean,
I don't like the ones that are like,
they're vegan and they're straight edge vegans.
Straight edge.
Two combinations of human. And I know lots of them. And that is the most miserable combination of human you could ever interact with. If you are not straight edge and vegan, if you are straight edge and vegan, they're your best friends. You guys are just sucking each other's dicks in every conversation. But
so I think it's important to make a distinction with vegans, in that there are people who become vegan for ideological reasons, and then there's people who become vegans for dietary reasons. Mm-hmm. If you're becoming a vegan because you truly feel it's healthier for you to
the people who do that for that reason, they're wrong. Because it's so hard for nutrition.
There are people who do that for a dietary reason. They don't sort of subscribe to this whole no animal suffering ideology. I have no problem with those people. Like if you're doing it because you think it's a better diet for you, and you're not going to chant meat is murder. I'm not criticizing those people, but even, and no offense, Christian, but
I'm not taking.
You're the one who brought up that you're a vegan.
Oh, right? Yeah, sorry.
We didn't.
It was all part of the business. Yeah, it's built in because I feel like it's the only word I can use that's close enough to an ideology. I feel I'm not really even a vegan, nor is anyone else. I think that word needs to be destroyed in a lot of ways because it's all about not wanting to create harm for other animals and to give more resources back to the environment in a lot of ways. And it's about how far you're willing to do that, I guess.
Definitely. And yes, straight edge people are dicks.
No, I mean that was the first time I've heard of veganism in relation to marijuana. Because to be honest with you, most of the veganism that I know of in real life are straight edge people. It seems to go hand in hand. as more of a fashion statement than not a literal clothing type fashion statement, but more of a something to subscribe to just to be a part of a club, just like the same. I mean, not to say that there's tons of straight edge people that do it whatever for whatever reason, but they tend to go hand in hand with me. I don't think I know anyone that's vegan and not straight edge, and I don't know anybody that's straight edge and not vegan.
I think a lot of the older ones would be more palatable for talking to in general, and a lot of the newer ones are just kind of getting on the bandwagon with this whole movement thing going on.
And it's not to say
it's
they're
very
not
different.
dedicated. I'm not saying that if they're for fashionable reasons or to be punk rock, whatever the fuck, they still are gung ho about it. They're just miserable assholes to be around.
And that's any social movement. Like talk to someone who's a fan of house music in 05 versus someone who's a fan of EDM today. Like two different types of humans.
With either one of those people, you can still be like, all right, fuck house music, let's have a beer together. And that's one, you know what I mean? You can still relate on different things. But veganism and straight edge, they can make literally every fucking part of your being into something that has to do with their ideologies there. Which, I mean, you could, I could smell the cigarettes on you. You know, I mean, they can, no matter what you do, that you can get fucked with by them, and that's why they like it.
But that's what you do. That's what Matt, like you. You drink to excess. You do drugs. You smoke cigarettes. I mean, at a basic level, you are offensive to someone of the straight edge sensibilities. So, like, what your statement is not generalizable to me. Okay, I can get along with a straight edge person just fine.
You drink alcohol occasionally.
Yeah.
Coffee, nicotine.
But guess what? Guess what? I don't drink coffee.
Any caffeine?
Okay, caffeine.
Occasionally.
It's not
No.
But that's all that it takes.
Listen,
that's all that
to
it
your
takes.
point. No. Listen, to your point. Okay, if I'm talking to someone who's straight edge, I'm fine not with the fact that I can't have a beer with them.
That was just an example.
Oh, well, that's actually a big thing. Like, I've had a hard time interacting with people who aren't vegan. Now I'm getting much better at it because you can't eat at certain restaurants, you can't eat certain food, and just even if you don't say anything about it or anything else, you act differently around other people who would notice what you're doing differently a lot of the times. And then since we're in a very small minority of the population, there's this really big angst, I think, with people not having a sense of community and thinking other people are doing things wrong when they're not really looking inward or actually talking with like-minded people. A lot of the time they're trying to push their ideology on others, and it gets weird.
What about the same thing with the marijuana? Like, if so like you probably have a schedule about like the normal time of day that you imbibe on marijuana.
Imbibe.
Yeah, imbibe.
You have such a way of saying it.
If I'm there, like, I'm not a big pot smoker, so like, you know, I
may push it on you if you're there. I'm bad about that, actually. That's one thing I like to push on people wanting to try it. If they're against it completely, I leave it alone. But if they're curious.
But so on the same thing where like a lot of people feel that like vegans sort of push things on people, and I realize this sounds like criticism towards you, but you're on our show, and I think people will hear that I'm just not coming from a place of criticism, but like you see a lot of things with the marijuana people is that they do the same thing where they try to push it onto people who are like, yeah, you know what, I realize you're passing it around the room, but like I'm good here with my Bud Light. Like I don't want that, you know, and it turns into like a real thing where the same way you're talking about how you're the vegan in the group and you can't eat it at the restaurant, you know, if I usually
do, I have a chips or something, but I made it work over time. Yeah,
aren't Oreos vegan too?
Yes, they are, and delicious.
Yeah, Doritos.
I like those. There's certain Doritos I can have, like the plain ones. No, actually, there's most foods I can have that are some form similar to a product most people can have. Like, we're getting cheese down really well. We're learning how to make it with the right times. Yeah, if you like use cashews and stuff or other things with the right microbials to break it down and turn into basically the same material as cheese, you get a very similar product. And a lot of people haven't been looking into that yet, so I mean, if you could create something that's completely the same as meat, is common access, and I guess if everyone was already eating it, it'd be second nature to keep eating that kind of stuff without thinking anything about it. But that's not how things have been going historically, and it's very new.
There's a market opening up for cashew cheese, so
yeah.
it's being made now. But can you speak to the to pot culture and how they've sort of and you see this with anything. I don't mean to single out those same things. I know I do the same thing when anytime I'm asked to play music, I'm always playing some sort of terrible reggae. And I know it's terrible because of the way people react. I'm the only one who
Davis
likes
is the stoner that never was. He has the shittiest stoner taste in music. I can't stand it at all. But stoner culture. That is a question that I've had the whole time, and I was going to forget about. I'm glad that he said that. How much do you hate? Oh, never. Let me rephrase it.
The Cheech and
What
Chong
do you
culture.
think about the people that are obsessed with the stoner culture of like fucking? It's 420, bro. I got 420 on my license plate. I'm wearing one of those weird hoodie things. What do they call those? Drug rugs? The fucking weird textured hippie things.
Made out of hemp.
I think that when there's anything that makes you have a different state of mind and is a good experience for you, you want to share that with other people. And so for people who are really getting into cannabis or liked it for the first time, they go all out, like kind of promoting it and like, oh, I found this new cool thing. Oh, I want to share it, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing with alcohol or anything else. And
Or
people
viral
YouTube videos, anything that's new experience. And if you can have a group of people that are really into it, subcultures like that usually get more and more obsessed with what they're into. There's nerds of every type of thing. I mean, there's nerds who are really into subgenres of football, sci-fi, anything, cannabis, alcohol. There's always like the microbrewery or that small place where there's 1,000 things on the shelf to try out, and they're so about alcohol or pot. I think that will always kind of be there, but the pushing aspect of it, I think, has been reduced on the recreational side at least, because the recreational shops can only have like a small like 24 by 24 sign. They're only advertising. We have to have child-proof locks and everything on all the packaging, so kids can't get it, so it can't be distributed to other people unless it's by choice by an adult, and that's their mistake. I think that I'm okay with everyone kind of being yay pot. I'm okay with there being a yay pot subculture and everything else, but I kind of see it the same as anyone who's super into one thing instead of having a well-rounded view of the world, that they're kind of limiting themselves by being too into one thing without kind of what it actually is. And they don't learn anything about the growing aspect of it or where it's from or the production aspects. They just like the end product, the pot, the whatever. They're that group of people. And there's a lot of them, and I encounter them every single day. And I prefer talking to the guys who know a lot about it or the ones who are brand new other than the ones who are really into the subculture, because they kind of know enough of what they want to know. They've looked into enough of what they want to look into, and they're happy where they are with it. And talking to other people who have experienced similar things as them. So
you could probably see when you talk to somebody, when somebody approaches you to talk about marijuana or whatever, you could probably tell within 15 seconds what level somebody's at in terms of knowledge, in terms of mentality about it. Because I guess what I was referring to is you must be a much nicer person than I am, because I'm not anywhere near the level into that culture as you are. And I'm already driven nuts by the people that I know that are just fucking
India sativa.
Right.
So much more
got this
than that.
new fucking shit. It's the greatest fucking shit. I'm going to put it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm going to Snapchat all my friends. Look at this fire. And then they got to do, oh, look at me rip this fucking bong, dog. Like, it's just, I am super, like I said, I'm trying to get back into smoking pot, and I still want to talk to you about that. I'm super. I'm all for it. I'm 100% for it. Very pro marijuana. Don't get me wrong here. I just hate a lot of the people that are on the same level that are super into it. So you could probably tell those different levels, and you never have people where you can like within a sentence you're like, oh fuck this guy.
Especially new growers who show you their weed for the first time are so into their product and being like, oh, this is the best shit ever. This is fire. I grew this. You can tell they're a novice still, and you don't want to like hurt their feelings or crush them. But I encounter those kinds of people every day, the new growers and the new potheads. The new potheads, the guys just getting into it who are like, oh shit, there's pot. This is good. but they don't really know what good weed is unless you really grew it or know the growing process. You can't really tell what kind of bud you have or the growing process it went through. And a lot of those guys, I get sickened because they show me things they think is the bomb that I know is just terrible. And it's hard because you want to bash them for it, but you
got to
better
encourage, but at the same time, it's just
You don't want to like, oh no, you stupid pots, like turn them off from it. No, you kind of want to. I don't know. It's like a childlike mentality with anything, or talking to anyone who's super obsessed about something. I mean, there's science geeks that are super into science but know nothing about it. If you talk to a real scientist, they'll be like, oh, one of these people. They watched a bunch of YouTube videos. They don't really know what all goes into advanced chemistry or something like that.
See,
I mean, there's real experts and there's dabblers that are super excited about stuff in every kind of field.
The people that have kind of warped and tainted my view of the whole thing are probably that. Not even YouTube experts. Dudes that are just,
Facebook experts.
Exactly.
Experts.
I mean, even it was pre-Facebook. I mean, I have the same dudes that are my age that have been quote unquote selling pot. I mean, and by that I mean like they move I don't know, a quarter pound a week or something, just ridiculously. It doesn't even make sense. It's so small. And they'll text you and dude, I got this fucking fire. Fucking check this shit out, dog. It's the greatest shit ever. And then they show it to you, and they're all super excited. They pull it out of their thing. They pull it out. They got a little flashlight. They shine it. They put it right in your fucking your face, and they're putting it all over. You see them crystals, dog? Look at them nugs, man. And it's just it.
Why does it have crystals on it?
Oh, that's the there's little trichomes that come off the plant that get covered in resin, and at the end it balls up, and that becomes a crystal as it cures. And so it crystallizes the THC and actually changes THCA into THC, and like it produces CBD and stuff as the process goes on.
And that's like better.
THC is the end goal, dog.
That's for most highs, yeah. But people really care about the smell, and this is one thing when you really get into it, like the smell of it.
I derailed your point, Matt. I'm sorry.
No. You actually made it more valid because I don't know. I'm learning things that the people that have showed me these crystals probably don't even really know, to be honest with you.
But when you get weed and you break it open and you look at the crystals, you can look at the structure of the plant, the color of it. You can smell it. You can see if it's been properly flushed, which means the last few. Oh yeah, what's Robert?
But they come in different colors.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Can I tell him like my third-rate, terrible marijuana usage opinion on colors, and then you do yours?
Go ahead.
I'll be the middle ground here. Dog. Actually, no. I'm just gonna play the. No, never mind. So. From what I have known, and this is the thing. Actually, and this is another thing. God, there's so many fucking. I could talk about it.
So many things.
There's so many things.
Endless. It's endless.
So back to what I said earlier about how when you start out smoking pot when you're in high school and shit. I started out smoking the grossest. Brick marijuana weed, and I thought that was pot. Like I thought that was it. I had no idea until I started probably sophomore year, like you guys did as well. Probably senior year of high school is when somebody's like, yo, dog, I got this nugs. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And then you actually, and this is the thing, you actually see what real marijuana is. When you cross that line, which at that point isn't really, I mean, when you're comparing it to what everything else really is, it's nothing. But that's a big step. So you have a big distinction there from this weird, gross, brown, globby, disgusting substance that you break off things and grind it up in your grinder that looks like a bunch of $half on top of each other.
Yeah.
I've had that since I was fucking 13 years old or something. And then, so then it goes from like that dark brown, globby thing to like a light, fluffy substance. Davis, right? Mm-hmm. You've seen those buds.
I have.
Well, I mean, okay, you smoked 4 times. What did it look like to you?
Probably little pieces of green thing.
Actually, a little bits of charred things that were handed to me already loaded into a thing.
Oh. Okay, so it was
except for one of those, it was baked into a brownie and it tasted terrible.
What did it taste like when you smoked it?
Burn.
Yeah, like burning.
Okay, so you haven't crossed the line, the aforementioned line here. So okay.
Apparently, I'm just finding out that it comes in different colors. I thought it was just green.
You've seen pictures of quote unquote buds, right? You've been on the internet.
That's the little fat part, right?
It's like a little ball of green. It looks like a little green acorn of flower.
They're all over my drugs and crime textbook for a class I'm taking.
Yes,
it's just covered in weed. They might have
little orange hairs on them and things like that.
No hairs, just the little flowers with the little balls on it.
Okay. So okay, let's say they're like so. I don't know the difference at all, but what's highly regarded is the purple weed, dog.
Oh, the perp OG. See, like some strains are genetically like predispositioned to get purple later on in the growing process. And the big thing I've noticed with color for weed is in the last 2 weeks when you're flowering, you want to remove all nutrients from the soil and the plant, and it will flush the weed. It will also lose a lot of its color and change colors like it's changing in fall, like normal leaves do on trees and everything else as you get later in the year. The end result of your bud could be a lot of different colors, and you can tell if it's been properly flushed depending on the color if you know the strain. So if like you see really, really green weed from the same strain, you saw very, very like almost brownish to a more auburny orangey color to it, you can tell where the nutrients went in it at the later stages. And if it was grown in a super soil, which can't be properly flushed because it's full of nutrients, and that changes the amount of high and how smooth it is to smoke. Go ahead, Robert.
I think this is going to be so off topic. I think auburn. No. I think the color auburn is the douchiest color to say.
No,
like if you refer to something as being auburn
colors,
like if you refer to something being auburn, I don't think there's a color that's it's a douchier when you say it. Like it just sounds like okay. You know when you with like the brewer people, the people who make their artisanal craft beers, and it has a dark oaky auburny color in it. You can taste the cork. You know, it's
that though. You really get into that, like the smaller aspects of how it is. And when you're trying to test new weed or really look at the size of the trichomes, the stickiness of it, if it breaks to see its moisture content, all of those things matter for your end product and what the high is and the experience of smoking. Because some weed, when you smoke it, you don't get a burn. It's this really smooth, pleasant, fruity taste.
Even though you're inhaling literally
burnt material.
Well, okay, but Davis, you're comparing inhaling this burnt material versus this burnt material. So in comparison, it's more smooth.
I was asking a question. I only have the experience in it tasting like burning. I thought that was just a thing. He was telling me something different. I was asking a question.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry.
Calm down.
No, I wasn't.
Calm down.
I'm calm.
Matt. But calm. Okay.
That's the worst thing to say to anyone when you're trying to make them calm down. So the moisture content. If you have fresh weed that's properly cured in jars and stuff, and you get it straight out of there from like a few days after, it has more moisture content, and the drier weed gets, the harsher it gets too. And so a little bit of moisture content in there will still burn, but it lessens the burn overall that you're actually feeling in your lungs, as well as certain nutrients that are still present in there at the end of the growing process will be very different in your lungs. Also, how long you flower these things will change the type of high you get. Like you'll get a more indica body high the longer you flower a plant as opposed to harvesting it earlier. You'll get a much headier high no matter what strain it is. So growing it affects every strain.
Would someone like me notice the difference between the indica and sativa?
If you were really clear-headed and gave them a few shots time after time, yeah, you really could tell. The difference would be pretty big in your body versus your head. Like you can feel it up here versus everywhere else. You'll feel more sluggish, like you're almost drunk a little bit on the indicas as opposed to sativas. The first couple of times are hard though because you don't really know what your state of mind should be while smoking it, or what the experience will even be. And once you try out different ones, yeah. Go ahead.
I just remember like they're sitting and okay, so the last time I smoked marijuana, I like passed out at like 7:30 at a party. Like
how long ago 7:30 was this before you go into the whole thing? How long
ago? We'll say October, November.
Okay.
Oh, that's pretty recent.
Okay. And I mean, it was just early. It's just I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. We're partying. It was a friend's housewarming party. I don't have anywhere to be in the morning. Well, I'll go ahead. Okay, I remember like I was sitting on the couch and I felt like well, I felt like my spirit was like trying to like pull itself out of my body, and I could like feel it like crawling away from my hand, like, you know the feeling when like you move your hand.
Oh, it's a body-mind disconnect thing where
Yeah.
you're reacting differently. It's very odd to experience that for the first couple of times. And I think you might have smoked like an OG Kush or like some heavy body lock. And I'm a huge fan of sativas because it helps me think differently without fucking up my body too much. They're much more pleasant for starters as well.
I was a big fan of the whole like feeling like I could like get up and walk around without like getting up and walking around. Big fan.
I've noticed working out while high is one of my favorite things because I'm going through the motions of working out without really feeling it 100%. It's weird. It's not a full disconnect. You can stick with it but not realize you're doing it fully, and you can get longer workouts in and stuff too. That's my own thing.
There was this weird, like, there was this, like you're saying, there was a disconnect because like I could control what the second body was doing just as easily as I could the real body. So like I could like move my left arm, my real left arm, but additionally not move it and have the fake arm out there.
Oh yeah,
and I could do them independently of each other. You know, like that's a really cool thing.
It's fun to play with, but when you get to like a super stone point at any level, if you get to that point where you're too stoned, quotation marks, because who knows how too stoned is, it gets scary because that disconnect is even stronger. And like it's this really delayed reaction in what you're experiencing and what you can do and react to it. And I don't know, it's different than drinking alcohol, but it's still a huge disconnect. Like alcohol makes you clumsier and like more sloppy. It kind of makes you more disconnected, more aloof, but more, I don't know, it induces state of mindfulness. Less present. It makes you more mindful of what's going on around you because you're less directly into it.
In my head, it's almost the illusion of disconnect, which makes you overthink it. And so, in effect, it's the opposite of alcohol because you're less clumsy because you're hyper conscious of everything.
Yeah, like I don't injure myself when I'm working out stoned nearly as much as if I were to be drinking and work out. Like I fucked myself up doing that because I just clumsily. It's terrible. Yeah.
You're bragging about how much you work out.
I have.
You worked out, Matt.
I was diagnosed with bipolar and stuff a long time ago, so instead of the medications and stuff I was taking back then, I have to live really healthy and have a very healthy lifestyle. Otherwise, I get off kilter and it gets bad for me.
So that's what made the big change then, like working out and healthy eating and things like that?
Oh yeah, it's huge. And so the mindfulness of the weed helps you kind of get there as far as how you're living and like what actions you're taking that maybe what you don't really want to do or maybe not be helpful to you kind of situates those in your brain a little bit better. But living healthy seems to be the best thing that got me off those meds and just a better mindset because I was in a bad place for a while. I don't know if it was because of the veganism thing for a few years or just the messed up childhood and drinking early and all that kind of stuff. And
it was clearly
very religious mindset when I was younger and all that.
The devil's
clearly
life.
the pot. It was the pot that's
clearly
everything's a tool. Everything's a tool. It comes down to what you can think about and what you can do, and it seems like alcohol makes you better at doing in the moment, and weed helps you disconnect and plan better in the moment. That I've noticed the two for how it affects your mind.
So Christian, you had you had some stuff that you wanted to bring up.
This kind of thing for this industry and everything else. Right now, it's only in Washington, Colorado, and a few states opening up. But I think anyone who's interested in plants in general or cannabis or becoming an entrepreneur in something, this might be the biggest opportunity anyone has ever had in our age group for getting into a huge new industry that will be growing exponentially beyond this point. And I really think that anyone curious in it and curious in growing should look into it and be prepared for their local law and their state law for how this may affect them in the future if they want any part of this industry. Because the earlier you start, the better you get at really diving into it and being ready for everything, because it's going to go really fast as more and more states open and federal legalization actually happens. And anyone who is doing something right now, like you guys do the podcast and everything, I love seeing that with younger people who are really trying to do something with their time and efforts, and there should be more of it. That's one thing I wanted to talk about. I'm glad that you guys have
and we're really late to the podcast game. Like we are not Leo Laporte. You know,
5 years, 6 years, 7.
Leo Laporte.
Think 20 years in the future.
Well,
20 years in the future, you guys will be ahead of the game. In 5 years.
Yeah, I was going for an analogy there that I was.
Who's Leon? What is that? But nobody got who the Leon Laporte guy is.
Leo Laporte? You don't know who Leo Laporte is? He was like the first dude to have a popular podcast. He was
define popular.
As in the 50. entire format gained prominence because of him.
I was just being a dick. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you're
Laporte, remember back before G4 there was Tech TV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Leo Laporte had a show on Tech TV called Screensavers. He also had another one called Call for Help. And after the demise of Call for Help, he started a podcast in which it was basically tech support for people. And he just talked general, and he just talked general technology stuff. And from there, he was really one of the first people to make his show available for free via this new way of receiving RSS feeds, which previously were just used to aggregate things together to have create your own Google News. It was a new way of receiving those in which you could put out audio files on them, and I believe he's actually the one who coined the term podcast. And the entire podcast format became a thing because of how popular he was able to use Screensavers and able to use Tech TV to grow that, and then word of mouth that, hey, here's this dude who's talking about all this tech stuff. Dig, y'all remember Dig before Reddit?
Is Dig gone?
It might as well
exists
be.
somewhere in the ether.
It might as well be, yeah.
Dark web.
Yeah, it's moved on. It's just a bunch of crack whores and dudes in Russia selling corpses with no limbs for you to fuck.
Buy a corpse.
Like 3 bitcoins. Dig was also real big in Leo Laporte's success. He was one of the people he worked with on Screensavers. Kevin Rose is actually the guy behind Dig. He created it. It was big in promoting it, and it grew this whole thing called the podcast, and eventually iTunes contacted him, and they introduced integration and podcasts into the iTunes store. As a result of Leo Laporte, he, if you want to be a podcast historian, he's the father.
Okay, so we're not him.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think when there ever is a new market or a new thing, the first people get into it are innately just hugely successful because they're the first ones willing to do that and learn about it and create it. And now it seems to be like, sorry, go ahead.
The analogy I was going to make for what you're talking about is the internet. Okay, In 1988, some dude bought sex.com.
88?
So much money now. Those dot-commers.
Yeah, the first website registries were like 88, right?
No idea. I didn't realize it was that earlier.
The dot-com boom.
You can look up like the first time that there were addresses assigned with dot communications was, I believe, 88, and someone had the idea of buying up those web addresses that car.com or sex.com or whatever might become useful someday. And I know the guy who bought sex.com is a millionaire now because of that. And it's the same thing like we were talking about, where he identified a brand new thing, okay, really early. He got super interested in it and went into it as an entrepreneur. He wasn't looking to make porn.
I agree with that point. And for us in the cannabis industry, we've already lost the first wave of billionaire pot growers and everything else. I mean, they're established. They've already had money. They are people with money getting into this. The next big thing with entrepreneurship or making money in this kind of industry will be getting behind either the science or coming up with new practical ways to make your plants bigger. For me, it's studying mycology and trying to get into the fungal side of this. There's a billion things that recycle nutrients better in soil than what we use now in just natural environments that no one's discovered yet or seen the applicable uses of that. If you find the right things that cycle nitrogen and potassium back into the soil better, you will have something that no one else has and could be a giant new technology in terms of growing for the individual or for the professional user. There's all these new opportunities with this kind of thing, also creating soils, being the middleman, working in security. There's a billion industries being connected to this that are just starting. And for you guys, it's going to be creating you don't even need to be the biggest market. You don't need to be the best, largest podcasters out there. As long as you have a solid following and really talk about things in a community where people want to hear stuff, you guys will be very successful. And there's always going to be room for new, people talking in these kind of ways and discussing new information. And I'm glad to see it. There's new things all the time.
In one of the realities, I guess that we've both realized is that we're entering this. If we wanted to get to a point where we made a living off podcasting, it'd be very hard to do so now because. What do we look like when we came after Loveline? We came after every Kevin and Bean show, every Opie and Anthony, every Adam Carolla's show, Joe Rogan's show. There's a lot of shows that do sort of the same thing we're doing. Mm-hmm. So sort of what you're saying there, in that if you identify something that's new and you have an original sort of take on it, like it's almost always going to be worth it, at least just for the experience of being the first one. So
and with new people on this podcast all the time, new experiences, you will always get that. People are always different, and you will always have new information come into this because everything's changing. Each person you have on this will have new insights on all the new happenings in the world. So even though they've had podcasts with other people way back into the past, you guys have unlimited opportunity to talk about new things with new people.
As long as the medium stays, as something that people are always listening to, it can never really get old because it's always based on the individual making the podcast and the individuals that are on as guests.
Which is a bizarre thought because, like, look at radio now. Like, who listens to radio?
When I'm in the car driving around, that's pretty much it. But I still listen to radio all the time.
But like, look at how people used to have, instead of a TV, they had a radio.
Instead of a television, now we have computers. It's going to go more and more in that direction.
Yeah, but then, like, what's the thing after computers? Like what we know about humans is that we will replace shit.
Well, that's the strange thing is it's hard to even conceptualize what could replace the internet. Not replace the internet. I mean, because it's evidently. I mean, it's going to be replaced by the internet. No matter what, it is going to be connected to something like the internet. But what will replace?
The internet's going to get replaced.
Right. So what would replace that? I mean, what?
Well, it's not so much conceptualizing it. It's okay. If you're the guy who conceptualizes it, good for you. Do that. But we live in a time in which. We will live when the next new thing just starts, okay? And I think that it is really important that people know that if you have some way that you can improve upon the new thing, just do it. Like,
before
even if you fail. Like,
just try it out, because if you're one of the innovators, that's rewarded usually. It always seems to be.
Definitely. So, like, whatever it is that comes around that replaces the podcast, I would hope to get on that real quick. Even
I think it might be.
Sorry. Look at the early adopters of Bitcoin. Okay.
Oh yeah, millions.
Bitcoin right now is at like 200. Okay, people are calling it a disaster because at one point it was $1,600. It's at 200 now. There are people who bought Bitcoins when they were less than a penny.
I had people, my friends that did that and sold them earlier. They kick themselves every day now. It's so sad.
Yeah, and but there are people who held on to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll see. I think for you guys, the next thing that will be on podcast will be something with the Oculus VR, where you can totally see people on multiple levels, or like virtual reality or holograms, where you can see actual interactions between people conversing, where you see their body language as well as their facial interactions and all that kind of stuff, where you can get way more out of a conversation than you would if it's just the spoken word you're listening to. And that might be a little – actually, that's probably pretty close in the future, but that's probably going to become very popular very soon, I would assume, because people love to see how people interact.
But I would take that a step further, and I would say that something that replaced the podcast would almost have to be able to integrate seamlessly with the things that people do otherwise. Because part of the success of a podcast, it's a radio show that you can listen to at work in your headphones, and when, hey, the boss comes by, you can hit pause and not miss anything, right? So it would need to be something that could integrate seamlessly with that. So we're talking, shit that's just delivered directly into your brain. Like we're having a conversation, and then it's packaged as a digital memory, and then that memory gets placed in your head, and then you revivify it at your desk while you're doing whatever else. That's just a concept. Like we're talking about podcast is already almost optimal for the internet. So what podcast is going to be the thing until the internet is replaced. And just think about the internet and how awesome is the thing that it replaces it going to be. Because there was a point in which there wasn't books, and then there was books. Could you imagine being alive then?
Oh, yeah, it's so different now. I mean, we were alive right before the internet got fully ramped up. I mean, that was in our generation still, where we probably didn't have access to it early on. But we're still in that group. Yeah.
My family got an internet connection in 1994.
I would have been 7. I had one around 9 or 10. That's when I got the internet.
I was 3.
3? Wait, how old are you?
I'm 23 years old.
Yeah, we're both 20.
Oh, okay.
We're 91 babies.
91. I'm 87. A couple years. So around 7 or 8 would be me for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't remember living in a place that did not have the internet. Okay, I just don't remember it. Okay? So for me, conceptualizing not only a world that didn't have the internet, but conceptualizing a world that didn't have the newspaper, that didn't have books.
But think about when the change from when a book came to be, or when the newspaper. It's like, well, we were writing on paper anyway. Now you just put it all into one thing. You staple it together. I mean, I know you know what I mean now.
Yeah, they bound it together with leather.
Well,
right. So
press.
but they're still writing.
Yeah,
when
people could actually read, because people were illiterate for the longest time,
and with the printing books came out, they were pretty illiterate too.
Oh yeah,
a long time.
It's slowly ramped up. So even this new technology, like the internet, there's so many people that have never been on the internet.
There's a parallel there, because I still run into people all the time. I no offense to them, but a large portion of my customer base, or people I interact with as customers at work, are maybe below the average intelligence line. And I still run into people all the time that don't know how the internet works. They don't even.
Mm-hmm. It's a series of tubes,
and they're proud. They're still proud of it. They're still proud. Like, I don't use computers. I don't fuck with that shit. Like, it's
that's an old people mentality.
But you'd be surprised. There's people that are our age that come in and say that shit to me.
There's people our age who can't even read still, or that's even further back, even before books and everything else. There's people who are living amongst us that are basically cave people still.
They are,
and they find a place in society.
That's really mean.
No, it's true though.
But it is.
Takes all kinds.
Person the same sort of tests, you give these people, and let's see how they both compare.
If they can speak I mean, if you work at a 9-to-5, learn nothing job, if you really had no education growing up, if you can barely communicate with talking with people, which there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you can actually slide by in this world and know nothing, and still pretty much do okay. But you'll be more and more disconnected, and your kids might actually catch up with technology faster than you, which is something I'm always fascinated by when people who are at that level have kids that are just brilliant because they had to learn on their own. And it goes back to that neglect thing again. Like, it's interesting what creates what generation to generation. And
like there was something genetically passed on to that child that was like, oh, dad and mom don't got it. Fuck this. I'm going to reach out for it. You know, I mean, we've got a computer and they don't even know how to use it at all. I'm going to go on Wikipedia and I'm going to teach myself, you know.
Think about how far ahead you guys are in so many regards compared to other people. And like thinking that you are limited because you weren't the first podcasters or having to enter in this market and everything else, you're so far ahead of kids that are being born today. I mean, in your 40s, you're going to have 20 years of knowledge plus the knowledge you've already had to keep up with new information and have old school information to refer back to. And I think as we age, there'll be more and more opportunity, and what you're doing now at the earlier stages is much more impressive because of that. I mean, who's in their 20s and does podcasts right now that has any following? Not very many. And there's maybe seems like a lot, but over the course of how many people are on the internet and everywhere, very few. If you look at the whole populace of the world.
Yeah, one of the things there, like the rate of change in technology, though, I know my dad has a friend who's a computer science professor at the University of Texas Arlington, and one of his major complaints is that, but in the time it takes to write a textbook, nearly half everything in that book is obsolete. You can't teach people quick enough to keep up because old information, when you talk about computers, becomes outdated that quick. And one of the problems with aging is that you become less able to keep pace. If your brain's a hard drive, okay, by the time you hit 40, it's been written on and then rewritten so many times that it's gonna slow down. There's a reason why, like, even people like my dad, who's worked with computers for like ever, he used to write out programs on sheets of paper because it would take days to get keyboard input into the computer. So you'd have to write it out on paper beforehand, and then have other people who would input it into the computer. And he can't keep pace now. He doesn't know how to work his phone.
I think the next step of after internet will be when we can have all the information in the world innately in us, or just, we have extra hard drive space attached to our brain with technology or whatever, and then podcasts will be only discussing new concepts that we don't know yet. And at that point, it'll be very interesting. I
think we're really going in a direction where we're talking about implanted knowledge. Like what I said earlier, podcasting being something in which we just sort of upload a memory file, and then that memory is we're headed in that direction because within the sort of scope that I can conceive, the step between the internet and anything more interactive, more connective, has to be inside your body.
Oh yeah, outside an external you can only learn so much in a lifetime, and no one can learn everything right now. We're kind of limited by that. We kind of have to come together as groups and podcasts or in universities to come up with new ideas and really new theories and everything else. From an individual, they're not coming out like Newton every single day. You have to grow off of other people's information. So you kind of have to start where other people are, and if we could get to that point a lot faster, I think that will be the next point of the internet. Again, Joe Rogan talks about all this stuff all the time.
Well, one thing you said right there, there are people alive today who have better ideas than Newton.
Oh yeah, but they're
and
not profound because we already know about them, or like we already conceptualized them. And
no, like there's people who are having ideas that we can't conceptualize.
We can't fathom, right? And that's
and they don't have words to put those concepts into. We're I think more so than our lifetime, we are really constrained by speaking.
Oh yeah,
not what? I'm sorry.
By doing, like, I think people are getting worse and worse at actually doing things in this reality. You may know so much information, but I've noticed with professors especially, they're bad at doing. Like, they're bad at creating. They're bad at starting things. They're bad at creating a business or something. They have all this knowledge, but they have a hard time actualizing it.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that there's always a give and take with how much you know and what you can do. And the fact that you guys are doing anything I find impressive, because there's a lot of people who are not doing anything. It's very interesting to me.
Definitely. And to my
what was that, Robert?
I said definitely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm here. I'm still alive.
Oh yes.
I'm still alive. Sorry.
It's been a while.
No, that's Pearl Jam. Don't compare that to Sting.
Oh, it's a different band. I thought it was the same
decade,
song.
different band. Fuck off.
Pearl Jam's overrated.
Maybe.
Ooh.
What I was getting at there is that we're really confined by language, in that we don't have words for all the concepts we have. But not only that, I can't communicate with someone who speaks Chinese. I can't do it.
I think the Egyptians were onto something with hieroglyphics, where a word was a picture, because we can have 1,000 words for one thing, one object in this reality. Until we simplify that, communication will be slowed down by all these different words.
But they also had one picture that meant 5,000 different words.
Which, that's closer to reality a lot of the time.
But that picture,
I think you have the same problems.
That's true, though. I mean,
mix of the two.
Picture would mean something different, depending on the.
And you're implying that when I see a picture of a scarab, I know what the hell a scarab is. Okay.
Well, if that information was innate and you could just see a picture of exactly what kind of scarab is, and you already knew all the differences of every scarab in the world, you would just need that picture and you would know exactly what they're talking about.
And depending on the context of that scarab picture, you don't necessarily have to know what it is, but you can kind of draw a conclusion based on the context, just like you do with words now.
Yeah, but one of the things there is if we have all knowledge that's innate, we're not going to be we're going to have one universal language.
We're moving in that direction anyway. English is becoming dominant, but with technology and translators,
English is diminishing.
Is it? Across the
Mandarin Chinese. I mean,
that's the biggest one right now. Yeah.
English is still the most spoken language throughout the world. English is definitely diminishing, and a lot of it is driven by business. If you want to be a successful business operating on a worldwide scale, you have to speak Mandarin Chinese, period, or else you cannot be successful working on the world scale. And as the growth of China happens, English is diminishing, and just like at one point, if you wanted to be successful in this world, you needed to learn English. We're all going to have to learn Mandarin Chinese, but we're going to get to a point in which we're not going to have to worry about that, because we develop either we develop communication methods that are far superior and far more accessible than speaking, that enable us to share concepts and ideas that we don't have words for. So it's like each individual person in communication is confined by the vocabulary that they know and the language that they speak. Okay, so like this, if we continue on like what we both conceptualize the next thing after the internet being, which is some sort of internalized device or communication method that I really can't I can conceptualize, I can't really comprehend. I think that one of the important advancements within that would be the removal of both those two constraints. You enable this person who doesn't have the vocabulary, the language to communicate, but also the other person doesn't have the same language that they choose to communicate with.
I think directly sending people images you have seen or experienced to and then having them understand it perfectly with technology is where the end point of that will be, like communication mentally. I don't know.
And get on that porn industry. Like, if you want to make money. Like, I mean, that's
that chooses who's the next Blu-ray, who's the next VHS. Whatever they back is the next giant thing we're using for technology.
The internet, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean,
porn backed it.
E-commerce only exists because some dude figured out how to charge credit cards online.
Mm-hmm.
It only exists. So, like Amazon, how many industries, businesses, people run businesses, they make a living off the internet now as a result of porn.
Oh yeah, that's a huge. If you create in your own home a few videos of you having sex with people, like, you can have a whole business built around it and live your whole life like that. And it's really easy to do that, actually, if you're willing to do that. But people aren't willing to do it because it's faux pas on so many levels, which I find hilarious still.
which is all. There's all these things that are going to be stripped out as a result of. See, I think internet is serving right now to be a huge echo chamber. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's a massive source of knowledge, and you can read anything by anyone and be exposed to just nearly any type of knowledge you can seek. But no one does that. Okay,
Have you played with the new Google translators and stuff yet? Either?
No.
They're so fun because it translates most foreign languages to English very, very well, at least getting the concepts of what they mean. So I think those communication barriers between languages will be a thing of the past.
But I think languages will dissolve.
I think, it'll probably go back down to core concepts of thought and, again, directly communicating with your
How long?
see and feel.
What kind of time span are we talking about, though? When you say that that languages will cease to become a
Look how long it took for us to go from the newspaper to the radio, then from the radio to the TV to the TV to the computer.
So where do you put language to where it is? I mean, to the absence of, or to the change of language.
I think me saying 30 years seems crazy, but I think if we look at the pace, and I don't know what the next technology is going to be.
Well, and technology is exponentially. I mean, every year we increase in technology, it gets that much faster in also increasing itself. No,
I can see myself being 63, and kids are making fun of how I yearn for the days when the internet was a thing.
See, I think that there's people who are alive today in their 60s all the way down to a young age who in 30 years who don't use the internet at all, who still won't be using the internet, the same people who can't read and write today in this age of the internet, they'll still be around in 30 years unless it's forced on them or it makes society a requirement.
We have a huge portion of the people who don't use the internet today because we've put a financial constraint on who can access the internet. Okay, I work with homeless teenagers, okay, and unfortunately there are a lot of people there who really can't, you can't call what they do literacy, which is kind of why I took issue with your caveman comment before.
I love cavemen. We were super awesome beings back then as we are now. They figured out their world.
I'm a big fan as well.
If you put me back in caveman eras, I would probably die because I don't know anything about that world. It's as impressive as they can live now then as that we can live now in this era in a lot of ways, and with all the weird things we interact with and hurt us.
So these kids, they're not on the internet not because they choose to be ignorant, but because we've put a money constraint on who can access the internet.
Well, I think you can.
What we as a collective
you can lead
society,
a horse to water. You can't make him drink, though. I know tons of people who access the internet that don't want to use it. A lot of older people too. They don't want it.
I know, but I would say if you cut out the people who are over the age of 60, so the older people are going to be resistant to technological change anyway. If you take the people who are, let's just say people under the age of 30 who don't use the internet, I would say a large number of those are people it's because they monetarily don't have access. And if you go people who are between 30 and 60, I would say that number is probably a lot more ignorant people rather than people who just don't have access.
What about like the Amish who go on Rumspringer and have access to all the technology and everything?
How many Amish people are there in this country?
There's a shit ton in the Midwest, which I grew up around. There's a lot of them.
I
hundreds of
near a bunch
thousands.
of them.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yes. In the world for Amish, more than that.
I said in this country.
Let's check. I want to look it up. Sorry.
Oh, I'm on it.
No, look it up, because my point could be completely off base. I would just think that there's more homeless people in the country than there are Amish.
Oh, that's definitely true. There's no disputing that.
Oh yeah. My family is very low on money, and we were near homeless many times before my mom rejoined the military. And we didn't have access to technology and all that back then at all. It is a cost thing. A lot of people would choose to use technology if they had access to it. I think most everyone, besides
what I'm saying is the number of people who have access and choose not to is a minority of the people who don't use technology.
Oh yes.
I think that a major step that we're going to take some point in the future is removing the money aspect from the access to information.
I agree, and I would love to see a globalization access to communication. That's actually one thing I really want to help with my future, is have free access to information on every level for every age group, for everyone, an easy way for them to get it. And like you can see with kind of public libraries, but they're very limited and not many computer spaces. And
and by the way, like my father serves on the local library board.
Oh, cool.
And he is the minority voice on there who does not just trash the fact that, when it's real hot outside, the library is full of homeless people who don't want to die of heat, because guess what? It's a free place where you can go, and they don't really kick you out. People are so against that, but it's like,
they're people. They are public citizens. They have access to public places.
Oh, but they're dirty, and they attract the wrong crowd. They do drugs.
I just read something today about a homeless dude got arrested for charging his phone in a public park.
Oh, screw that! Like I don't know. If people don't have homes and everything else, allowing them to use public stuff is not the way to go after them.
Who else is it for?
Right,
exactly.
That's what it's just there so I could plug my boombox in and play Matchbox 20 on a Sunday when I play volleyball.
And
public services.
And here locally at homeless shelters, they charge you to stay there. It's like $10 a night.
Well, with the amount of land we have, if we can build houses cheaper and people are willing to devote some land to it, there'd be people there, but again, there'd be no industry for them. It'd be weird.
We already have more vacant homes in this country than we have homes.
Homeless people, yes.
Oh God, we have to change that.
And also look at Utah. The state of Utah has virtually eliminated homelessness. Okay, by just saying, if you are homeless, we will give you an apartment. The apartments are provided by complex owners who get a tax credit for making 1 or 2 rooms in their building available to the state. They get a huge tax credit. That's a little bit more than rent would be. They give the person an apartment, and they assign a social worker to them who it's their only job is to help them find a job.
See, for me, I think that I keep wanting to go back to where humans were originally, like a couple million years ago, and how pretty much everyone was homeless, living off the land. Comparatively to them, being able to dumpster dive and find food everywhere is a godsend compared to what that was. Again, it's not as good as we have it, but I think there might be something interesting as far as
it's apples and oranges.
It is. It's a silly thing to bring up, even.
When ancient human would hunt and kill an antelope, like 5 people would be out hunting. They'd bring it back to the group, and everyone would get to eat. Okay.
There'd be the individual outliers too, but that's the major societies ought to work together.
Okay, but if one person goes to work, we only let that person's labor result in their ability to eat, or the people that they choose to, and then we have a system in which people who are a part of our society, who are an integral part of our society. If we don't have a lower class, we don't have a middle class, we don't have an upper class. Okay, we've decided to stratify our society, and one of the things that we've done in doing that is we've enabled people to just not eat. We've enabled hunger within a society that has plenty of resources and ability to feed everyone in it. We've enabled a system in which people can't. Ancient man. I don't have evidence. I believe this to be true, though, is that if if there was enough food for everyone, everyone would eat. I don't believe that they stratified their society in such a way in which they had classes of people who just couldn't eat.
Well, there was a much smaller number of people, though.
I think
but we have much more resources and access to food.
I think if people are willing to look for food in places that would be considered socially unacceptable, like dumpster diving, or around the country here, there's roadkill every 20 feet, it seems like. There's just food everywhere that people would not have access to in the ancient days in certain areas, especially if there's a lot of people all living off the land without agriculture and everything else. There'd be very limited food, especially in your area, and you protect it from other people even hunting there or living there. Besides food, water, shelter, and shelter can be living under a bridge. I thought about being homeless for a long time instead of doing things with my life. Kind of like, I don't know. I'm not over. It's not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing, but I think you can survive pretty well and still be homeless. I mean, I know a lot of homeless people. We interact with them at the food shelter and stuff, but I think they have it better off than people in third world countries, even the homeless here, if they are willing to look for things in certain areas. They're not You don't have to starve in this country anymore. There's ways to get food, even if you're willing to. Again, dumpster diving is where I go because it's just full of good food still. I always like the idea of that. But people don't have access to it. It's illegal to they go to dumpsters and dig through them. I've seen homeless guys being arrested or hassled for that. So we make it hard on a lot of levels for people to get by in that because we have societal issues with it still.
So, like what you just said, the Ronald Reagan statement that no one goes hungry in this country for lack of access.
I hate Ronald Reagan.
That's his statement that you effectively parroted, right?
But I am doing things to help there be less homeless and stuff in my own ways and trying in the future to do more of that.
I'm not.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying.
Go ahead and attack Reagan. Let's go for it.
It's only true. It's only true if you say it's success. So, if a person wants to operate within the laws and have food just by not having money, they can't do it.
Are you allowed to dig in the trash in certain areas? Is that a law in certain areas? You can't.
I think
there's a lot of places you can't dumpster dive. It's private property.
Dumpster diving.
That sucks.
I have. I don't know if I can show it correctly, but Davis has a point.
You said you were looking for something. I was going to talk while you were looking.
Oh, go ahead, talk.
I'm doing a show. I'm filling time. I didn't want to have a big gap while you were looking for something because you decided to break into the conversation. I was going to turn the camera to
show what I was talking about. No. Statement, dog.
I'm not wrong, right, Christian? Like, he did say he was looking for something. And
I didn't know if you could see it. Okay, anyway.
No, we're fighting about this now, okay?
Okay, let's fucking fight then. Okay. I didn't mean to imply I was looking for something. I didn't know if my camera would show what I was about to state. There's a corner of my room right here, which is all bad. It's all bad. And there's 2 windows. See those windows?
Mm-hmm.
This is great for an audio podcast.
Okay, Joe. Lay off. Right outside that window. Okay, for the people at home listening, they just saw a bed with 2 windows that are at the edge of the bed. One on the horizontal side, one on the vertical. It's not a hard concept to grasp. I don't think you necessarily had to see it to understand what I'm talking about, but I just thought I would show the people that have the ability to see it. So about 10 feet from both of those windows is a dumpster. and 2-3 times a night, there's people diving in that dumpster every single night of the week. I've lived here almost 4 years. It's consistent all the time, but they're never getting food or anything like that out of it. It's just for cans.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah, I think there's a lot of food that goes to waste because people aren't willing to eat that stuff because they're worried it's bad.
Even the people that are dumpster diving are not willing to eat the food in the dumpsters.
Yeah, like there's all this food that goes to waste that if we just found ways to use it differently or give to certain people, I think the homeless, and at least the hunger issue would be down and out. As for a home to live in, I mean, what do you really need to get away from the elements other than all these luxuries we have?
It depends on where you're at. I mean,
it's true. If it's cold, you need a place to live.
Today's a warm day of the week, and it's probably 10 degrees outside. I mean,
yeah.
When I went to Washington, D.C., one of the most striking things I have ever seen, it was cold outside, and I am looking at the White House, and I turn my head, and there's a grate on the ground, and something runs underneath there, and it was putting out a lot of warm air. And there were 3 homeless people standing over this grate. And I'm looking at the White House here, and here's these 3 homeless people just trying to stay warm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking like look over your left shoulder, then look over to your right, and it was this huge juxtaposition right there. And what you just said reminded me of that.
Well, we've talked about that. We may have talked about this on the podcast before, about the correlation between the capitals of a state or the capital of our country, for instance, and the relation to the amount of people that are living in poverty. I live in arguably one of the poorest neighborhoods in Des Moines, the capital of Iowa. That same dumpster I was just talking about, if I were touching it with my right hand, I could turn to my left and see the capital of the state that is literally coated in gold straight up the alley. I mean, it's a block and a half away, and it is literally coated in. There's a giant dome, and it's coated in actual gold. And I can look at that while people are digging. They can see it while they dig in my dumpster.
I would love to see a redistribution of wealth in this country by choice, preferably, instead of taxes and everything
socialist.
That's filthy. I know, right? I want to give it to everyone over here. I'm going to be poor, but hopefully I do some good. But I think that...
who are these fucking people who they have no problem going through life and not being of service to people around them?
Well, if you have the option of working a minimum wage job with no education, illiterate, and the amount of learning you'd have to do to even catch up with people, or you could be a homeless person and still eat and still, have a place to sleep if you know a nice little hole in the wall somewhere. I would probably choose the homeless over the minimum wage, just struggling to get by kind of a thing.
So I think I completely misstated my point.
Oh, sorry.
I'm talking more. Who are these people who you said I'm going to be poor, but at least I'll help. Who are these people who are way cool with I'm going to be rich and fuck everyone else?
The Romneys of the world. The Koch brothers.
The partner I just broke up with for this business was one of those people. And I didn't like it very much. There's a lot of them out there. Yeah, that's all they care. Money is scary. Money is terrifying.
Okay, so my career outlook, okay, like what I want to do with my life, okay, and this is like the 40-year plan, okay. When I retire, okay, I already have like in my head what I want my legacy to be when I suddenly die of a heart attack and people are crying at my funeral. Okay.
What imagery?
It's just that already.
Fucking poet.
Yeah, I want people crying there because I lived such a great life in which I helped enough people.
I'll be there. First time we'll see each other, you're in the casket.
Dude, you'll
really the legacy you give
your way
to
out.
other people.
I'm sorry?
What you can give to other people is the only thing that matters after you're gone. It really, it really is.
So right now, I'm going to school to be a probation officer. Okay, I would like to work with sex offenders. And beyond that, I would like to continue the volunteer work I do with the homeless kids, but I see such a huge opening for homeless families. Okay.
Oh yeah.
We have massive numbers of entire families that are homeless, and we don't really have an organization that is servicing those families in a non-faith-based way, in a way that does not have
Non-faith-based.
Well, I think not being non-faith-based is important, because it to me it comes off as a little disingenuous when you're promoting your church while you're getting them.
That's because it is. It is. It doesn't come off as it is.
The help is valuable. Okay, faith-based organizations do a lot of good in this world.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but to me, in order to truly help people, you need to remove that motivation there. And
it has to be for people in general. It doesn't have to be for a cause, but for the sake of people, I think.
I have this idea that I would like to start the organization for Dallas that not faith-based and helps with home, job, and education placement for homeless families. That's in my plan. Okay, I cannot comprehend the people who are like, I want to be a lawyer and I want to fuck bitches. And
I don't get it. I've seen people like with that mentality so hardcore, and I don't know how they sleep at the end of the day. And in their 50s, 60s, 70s, when they're about to die, they must go through some shit. Especially maybe at that last moment, the DMT trip at the end.
There are people who they're like 60, and then they consider themselves to be a philanthropist. You threw money at a problem to try to make up for the 60 years of your life in which you directly contributed to the human suffering of people by virtue of ignoring them,
or using them because of systems. Yeah.
The people who yell "get a job" at people who are panhandling. Okay, people who have you can teach a man to fish mentality.
It's hard to in this day.
But they go to church every week.
They tithe, dog. They tithe.
Oh,
they gave to God. That's where it matters.
That stuff bothers me a lot, especially if you look at Africa and where the money went from churches and stuff to do things over there. It gets really weird about what people were spending their money on for good causes for that. I think it's a larger organization that takes advantage of people who are giving and the advantage of people they're giving to. And if there was just a direct system where you could give to an individual, that'd be much more powerful as opposed to giving to a faceless organization.
Or let's not be dicks about it, and instead of giving money like that makes it okay, give your time, give your effort. I mean, I just don't understand. Like, I almost want to like put out feelers to have someone who's super rich on the show, because like I couldn't have Romney money.
After they listen to this episode, we'll never get a rich person on the show ever. It doesn't make any sense at all. Go ahead. Sorry.
But like Andrew Carnegie became the richest. If you adjust for inflation, he's the richest person of all time.
Okay? And who is he?
And
come on.
Andrew Carnegie, are you serious?
He's like one of the founding fathers of our nation's great capitalist environment.
Yeah, Andrew Carnegie. Railroads, cars, everything, like anything made of steel. He that's him.
So what did he actually do, though? I mean, where does he?
Him and a guy named Henry Clay Frisk started.
Man, I feel so. Yeah, I haven't heard of that guy either.
Fisk was much lower key. He didn't make nearly as much money because they sort of broke their business partnership before Carnegie became Carnegie. They created a steel company, and they were able to set up a supply line which basically we actually made the Sherman antitrust law to sort of prevent exactly what they did, in which they owned every step of the production line.
Okay.
This tied house rule here they wanted to break. Yeah, continue.
So what that enabled them to do was sell steel really cheap, and it basically made the Industrial Revolution a thing that could happen. And without Carnegie and Frisk, the Industrial Revolution does not happen in England or the U.S.
Okay.
Period. It doesn't happen.
One question. So you said we make laws so that couldn't happen again.
So we can't have
Shouldn't.
monopolies. Because after a point, it gets a little
But-
bit powerful.
But a
The Sherman
monopoly made
Antitrust
the
Act.
Industrial Revolution happen.
I'm sorry?
You just said, okay, so we're making laws so that can't happen again, but it also led to the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, yeah, but what was the Industrial Revolution was a massive explosion in few people making obscene amounts of money, and then there was a trickle-down effect. Because of trickle-down economics is very real when you're talking about the scale of the Industrial Revolution. Right now, there's not enough money for that to be real yet. Okay, the Industrial Revolution happened as a result of these monopolies being set up that enabled the steel to be made so incredibly cheap that suddenly all these other things can be made, like cars and such, and people were employed doing those. We make laws against that now because there's no new industrial revolution.
There could be, and I think this next revolution will be people being able to create and grow things on their own that are still really valuable on some level. That everyone starts doing that. That will be the next revolution, where there's a lot more things produced and available for everyone, both technology and everything else.
Yeah, and what? Yes. And what I just said was completely ineloquent, and I don't think made sense at all. So I'm going to restate my point there. And say that, yes, we prevent the same thing that started the Industrial Revolution, but the Industrial Revolution is not necessarily something that we want to recreate because of all the other things that happened. The Industrial Revolution kicked off what's called the Gilded Age, in which the government had a very laissez-faire attitude about things, and there was a lot more human suffering. There was no workers' rights. You had things. Have you ever you read The Jungle, right? Upton Sinclair.
Yep.
Okay,
Meat industry.
That is the Industrial Revolution. Okay. In fact, the Upton Sinclair is a quote that I love, where he says he wrote a book aimed at people's heads and he hit them in the stomach. Okay, the Jungle was not supposed to be this big thing about the meatpacking industry. It was supposed to be a call for workers' rights, and it wasn't really received as that. One of the things you have when you have monopolies like that is there is no incentive to treat people well, because you're just going to make money hand over fist either way. So we don't want that to happen again. Yeah, we're probably stifling the next Industrial Revolution, but we don't want it to happen again.
Because the government would lose control. We were manifesting destiny at the time, so we were just trying to spread across America. So we were probably backing that up like crazy until it got to a point where it was too powerful, and then we wanted to back down again.
Yeah, so I think that's a lot better way of stating what I was trying to say before. I don't think
I got that.
So, okay, I cut it off with not knowing who the guy was. What were you saying when I didn't know?
You guys...
The two of them... they started the steel industry, basically.
Right.
So you were talking about philanthropists after they make their money, how you didn't like how they weren't working their entire life.
So Carnegie.
Thank you.
Carnegie became the richest man of all time. Okay. No one was ever as relatively rich as he was. Period. And then he's like 50 and starts saying that he is doing everything he can to give away all his money. Okay, that's why we have the Carnegie Family Trust, the Carnegie Trust, we have the Carnegie Hall. Okay, all this stuff. He wasn't able to give away all his money because we still have the Carnegie Trust. Okay, but he was doing that because he realized he got to where he was by
other people helping him.
Not just helping, he directly caused human service. I mean, the Philadelphia Steel riots, I mean, he was in charge of the police, and he ordered them to effectively execute like 50 people. Okay.
I like his mentality on life, which is in the first part of your life, learn as much as you can. In the second part, make as much money and do as much as you can. In the third part, give away everything that you can. But I don't think he did it fully. Obviously, he wanted a legacy for his family to go on and for a lot of money to go on in his own private sources for future endeavors. Well,
actually, the deal there is that he had so much money, he was unable to give it all away.
Oh, yeah. It'd cause huge inflation. It would make money meaningless if you gave everyone that kind of money. I wonder how Bill Gates compares to him as a philanthropist after this point, if you're going to compare how much money he made in this time period versus how much...
Well, you know who, and I hate to give the guy credit because he's another dickwad. But you know
dickwads make the world turn.
You know who one of the most effective philanthropists have been in America? Americans who do philanthropy. Most effective is George Bush.
Senior?
No, Junior.
What?
Look into his work with malaria. He's his group and his actions both as president and since leaving office. Malaria is almost eradicated on the continent, and it's almost entirely his group that's doing that work.
But is there a lot of resources and stuff coming out of there that we couldn't have access to before because of the malaria? Was there some other secondary motive to that?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, this is a lot of country. Okay, like the Central African Republic almost has no malaria anymore, and there's a reason why no one has ever heard of the Central African Republic, because they have no natural resources, they're landlocked, and they're perpetually in civil war. And his organization has been there, handing out the bed nets, doing what they can.
Malaria is serious. Like, I got either malaria or leishmaniasis when I was in Nepal and was KO'd for a very long time because of it. I'm terrified of that shit.
Yeah, it's very real, and it was very prevalent on the continent. And one of the things is that Africa looks at Bush as one of the greatest U.S. presidents just because of what he has done, both towards the last part of his presidency and since leaving office, in that he has done tremendous work, undeniably good things in reducing malaria on the continent.
Huh. Well,
that being said, he's responsible for the deaths of millions.
And ongoing wars and stuff. But I wonder if that's mostly the U.S. itself kind of churning forward and doing all this weird policy. And as an individual, does he have that much power getting to where he was on the help of other people to the presidency? You have to have so many influences to get to that. I think you have to pay it back with the evil things you do, and then they try to make good with what they can, especially after the presidency. I've noticed with a lot of presidents. I guess if you do a lot of evil, it'll kind of get back to you, and you want to do good at some point. It gets kind of a karma thing.
He's trying to do some reverse karma.
Reverse karma.
And then Jimmy Carter, who's like monitoring elections.
Yeah,
what a dick. Feed people.
Well, he Habitat for Humanity. Carter did that for many years. He built houses for homeless people.
He's a great dude. He doesn't have to.
Being hyperbolic.
Yeah, right.
The Jimmy Carter Foundation monitors elections. They just
does.
Yeah, that's what they do. They go to, so Sudan has an election, monitors from the international group. It's the Jimmy Carter Foundation. Go there, and they're the ones who, when you hear about an election in some foreign country and they say it was mostly free or free and fair or had irregularities, the group that says that is the Jimmy Carter Foundation.
I wonder if, because Europe fucked up Africa so hardcore in history. Like we've already messed that place up. Any good we do is kind of, I don't know, like that between that and the Native Americans over here, we've fucked over so many people to have access to all we have with all the good we've done.
The Philippines too. mean,
Oh, yeah.
the U.S. I mean, people forget the U.S. was actively engaged in colonialism. We colonized the Philippines, and I love the quote. It was President McKinley at the time, and his wife is quoted just this awesome quote, and she said, "We have an obligation to help our little brown brothers."
Oh God, it's like we still manifest destiny. After we couldn't expand our borders anymore, we did it on a very intellectual level with the societies.
You gotta spread freedom to every corner of the globe.
Freedom isn't free, man. You gotta break a few eggs to make that omelet.
Well, and you know, as part of that, as a collective society, we have established that we are okay with people dying for our values, right? Like
the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. In our case, the needs of our few in America outweigh the needs of the many from elsewhere.
Yeah,
us and them mentality.
You know, we have a military that we use offensively, and people are in general okay with that.
The people in the military themselves don't see themselves at all at that. I grew up on military bases and everything else, and man, like you can see the evils that are going on because of the military's arm and reach in the world, but the people in it are some of the nicest people. No, they're just cogs in a big machine, and they don't do any of the full evil themselves. It's just one small piece per person in some large organization that's being led by one or two people, usually civilians like Rumsfeld, who are in charge of all of it, which is terrifying. Yeah.
What I don't get is with Rumsfeld, if the United States was a signatory to the International Court, Rumsfeld would be a war criminal, right?
Almost everyone we have in office is a war criminal.
Right, yeah, I mean, he wouldn't be the only one.
We've all done. They've given orders that did terrible things. And a lot of our corporation owners would be war criminals too if you look at the humanitarian aspects of it. We just don't try.
And Nigeria actually tried that. They tried to have a couple of U.S. executives from Cargill maybe. Okay. I don't remember what the company was, but they tried to have executives from some company because of be brought up on international court charges over some of their activities in the country, and the USA, of course, Obama, obviously didn't get reported too well, but he issued some statement or whatever, and has the full support of the U.S. to not stand trial in some foreign court. Like what it did, one of the most moderating forces in conflicts has been the International Court, and it was so important that we had the Nuremberg trials. Okay, we gave life sentences to a bunch of 85-year-olds. Why did that matter? It mattered because we have a bunch of world leaders now who know that that's a very real thing. Charles Taylor is in prison now.
Oh yeah, people are going to be held responsible for their actions more and more in the future. Corporations.
Matt's like, who the hell is Charles Taylor?
I didn't know. I'm sorry. Who is Charles Taylor?
He was the president of Liberia during the Second Liberian Civil War. He is in prison now after being convicted of using child soldiers in his group's incursions into the Civil War of Sierra Leone, and he's awaiting trial for war crimes for his actions in the Second Liberian Civil War.
Whatever happened to Coney?
He's still missing. Guess what?
That's awesome.
We were never really looking for him that hard, because on the scale of war criminals in Africa, he's not that bad. Okay, one of the biggest war criminals, and oh man, here's where we get to be called anti-Semites. If the U.S. allowed Israelis to be brought up on international court charges, we have Netanyahu, who has, what was it? 3 boys were murdered, so he ordered the invasion of a country.
Oh yeah, that was last year, no?
Yeah, that was and this is like the 3rd time he's done that.
Wow. we had a draft of 18-year-olds in this country. I mean, a lot of 18-year-olds are still kids in my eyes, and they were like, we've done the same kind of thing as far as a little bit older, but there's 17-year-olds that can join the military, and like my mom did at 17 and be part of it. And I think that's so young to die for your country and everything else, and not even be used for something that you don't know what's going on.
You have no concept of what your country
no idea.
is.
Yeah, you're just patriotism.
How many people who are 18 have been outside of their state?
Not many, I'm learning. I was lucky to travel around a lot.
Okay, actually, it'd be kind of a funny thing to map out, because I would wager the amount of people that serve for the military at 18, there's probably a larger portion of those that haven't been out of their state when compared to those that did not. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I think, like, my mom went to Germany, and I guess they already traveled a little bit. It's a way to keep traveling if you don't have much monetary gain with your regular job and stuff. It's a really neat way to see the world, but at least that's how it was kind of told to us. But we went to North Dakota, Texas, Alaska, which was the coolest one, but the other ones sucked ass. So a lot of military people who join in will stay in the States in some backwards little small town military base situation, which sucks. Military I don't like, but I wanted to join it a lot when I was younger, but now I do not at all.
Not enough money to feed the poor. Plenty of money to have how many bases in Germany?
Oh my God, they're going to be shutting down a lot of the European bases. That just came out a little while ago. They're trying to do away with most of them just because there's no need anymore to have.
And there's a big thing about
I'm sure the 2 jets that's going to buy is going to serve us well fighting against people.
Yeah. The money saved will definitely go to a couple jets.
Again, 55% of our discretionary spending, yet we cut education.
Well, we got to stay on our toes, man. I mean, there's people trying to kill us all day, every day. We got to make sure we've got people with guns that want to kill them, and a lot more of them.
We need uneducated masses we can control, and new soldiers who won't question getting into the military and being a part of it.
I mean, if we had more education, there'd be less uneducated people that would try and join up with the military.
Or put up with the U.S.'s bullshit for our own regulation of our own people. Education's scary. They don't want it. They really are pushing against it. I wish they wouldn't.
And notice how President Obama announces his free community college initiative.
I saw that.
The day not the day, like a couple days after Republicans take control of the Senate, meaning there's literally no chance of it happening. So the second it can't happen, he's all for it.
Well, and that kind of goes with
the possibility.
Well, it might make them look bad if they're against it to all the populace, so they're trying to play it in the Democrat Party.
It's a politics. I mean,
it wasn't a debate before. He pulled us out of air. Yeah, he made it a debate. It wasn't a thing. It's not like he put input into a thing that was already out there. He pulled this out of air suddenly. Now that it can't happen. Now that it can't happen, suddenly he's all for it.
Well, and if he truly cared about it, he would have been talking about this. I don't know, before the last time he was elected,
or how about before the first time he was elected?
Right, and at some point during any campaign. So do you think this is purely just some sort of a politics game of like they're like, the Republicans are taking over, let's fuck with them.
I think it might have been, but I think they're just trying to divide people. The whole party system is so flawed. We need to get the hell away from it. And individuals having power over huge amounts of the military and stuff like that. I mean, anyone.
Okay, so I actually like the party system. I think that.
Really? Oh, what? What do you like about it?
So what parties? Okay, I don't support the 2-party system. I like the party system.
Oh, okay. I would like 20 parties, and then that'd be awesome. I would love that. Yeah.
But when you have a multiple party system, you are going to have coalition building, which you're still going to have sort of the left-right dynamic, but you're going to have more centrists in there.
Ron Paul. I want Ron Paul. Sorry. I was plugging Ron Paul. Go ahead. Oh,
don't set him off. Don't set him off.
You don't like Ron Paul?
Oh, I see it building, and I got to pee, too. Oh, man, I'm going to miss something great.
Oh,
no, there's nothing building. I just I'm just going to have to bleep you out.
He would be, at least he'd be
Go
honest with
Blue!
what he's trying to do in politics and everything else. He'd
No,
probably
no,
keep
no,
to his
no.
word.
No, Ron
Now
Paul
you've
does
said
the
too
exact
much. Now
same
he's gonna have
thing.
to get into it.
I just wanted to say more to see what happened.
Ron Paul does the same thing I'm saying Obama does, and that is
Really?
Ron Paul takes positions after it's safe that he can't affect any actual change. If you look at Ron Paul with his how against torture he is, okay, Ron Paul voted for the National Defense Authorization until 2008. So as soon as he saw the political angle in which he can't affect change, which he should now be against funding these groups that commit, what we all knew was torture at the time, and spying on citizens through the Patriot Act. He could have been voting to defund it in 2006. We were still under the Patriot Act then. He didn't vote to defund that until he wasn't voting against funding for it until 2008. Okay, so when he started crafting that idea as being part of his thing, it wasn't something that he was all that into. Okay, and also if you look at Ron Paul is from such a tiny district in Texas. Okay, to try and pretend that him being a gynecologist for like what 6,000 people qualified him to get that office in the first place, and then
What did George Bush ever qualify for getting into office? I mean, some of our presidents were. He failed oil companies and such.
George Bush successfully ran a large organization, the Texas Rangers, and then he was elected governor, which was an executive position, and Texas governor is largely ceremonial. Okay, there's next to nothing the governor does. Okay, the lieutenant governor is the get shit done position. Okay.
I was in Texas for the No Child Left Behind, so I have angst against Bush because I got me out of high school.
Oh, yeah, and the thing with Bush there is, Bush was only effective there because he had, he was still popular. But Rick Perry, the lieutenant governor at the time, was the one doing it. In Texas, the governorship is largely a ceremonial position, and people pretty much understand that when they vote for him. I mean, state government in Texas is ceremonial. Do you know how often this legislature meets?
Never.
They meet every other year for 4 weeks.
Oh, God.
Every other year for 4 weeks.
Local government needs to become more prominent with individuals who are not in politics already or have some kind of lineage giving it to them.
So Bush did have success in business. Okay,
Didn't he fail at the oil companies?
He had failures, but he also had success. I mean, as a business, the Texas Rangers was successfully run.
What was the Texas Rangers? The
baseball team?
Oh.
Yeah.
How does that qualify you to become president of the United States, though? I don't think anyone's qualified to be president of the United States.
No, it doesn't qualify me president. It qualified him to become governor.
How does that qualify you to become governor? Even I guess it's a 2-0 job.
It's as owner of the Rangers. I don't think you understand what the Rangers were in the 70s.
But
they were a new team that didn't exist here, and he successfully piloted a marketing strategy. He ran an organization that turned them into a real factor in this state for like 15 years.
But didn't he have a lot of old money and resources allowing him to get to that point?
Well, yeah, his father was director of the CIA.
Yeah, I mean, he had old money and people who would guide him along the way.
Yeah. I'm saying that we've had less qualified presidents.
Oh yeah, we've also had more qualified. It's Obama.
Yeah.
Who is qualified to be president? I don't think anyone is in this day and age.
Well, okay. If you want to make the argument of who is the most qualified just to step in the job and go, what is the most angsty position the president has? It's the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, that's the one that we put the most.
the military is the highest. The president's highest degree of failure can happen in the military. His biggest fuck up can be massive misuse of the military. Correct. It's the only thing he has total control.
Misused? No matter what, it seems.
The thing most in his control. Everything else the president does. Well, I mean, I guess the president has total control. He could pardon every federal prisoner. Okay.
Well,
if you have a lot of crime.
Fuck up that way. Yeah.
Yeah, he can, but he can also launch 30 nukes on China, right?
Hell yeah.
He could also demilitarize a lot of our foreign influences that are causing angst and the so-called terrorist things that are happening over here in the United States.
Exactly, and I'm saying,
they didn't do that.
The highest the highest fuck up ability of the president is the military. So the person who I would say is the most able, the qualified, would probably be like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You could probably take that position and say, yes, you're qualified. I would say that someone who is a Secretary of State or a Speaker of the House.
I would say that a high-end 4-star general that's been in the military his whole life and knows the ins and outs of it might be more qualified than any of those people if it's a military-only thing to run our nation on that basis.
That's why I just said chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Who is that right now?
Right now, that would be, is it still Mullen, Admiral Mullen?
Okay. See, a lot of those guys too. The officers in the military are weird things. The highest up ones either have an agenda for why they want to be in the military at a higher rank, or they're just one of the only ones that stuck with it long enough without retiring from the military. And I have a weird thing about higher end officers that I've met a lot of times. They don't care about humans nearly as much
as they should,
just based on their stuff. Yeah, they're in the military. It's scary.
It's weird. Petraeus, he's like the first chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in a long time who, when he enlisted, he was like a infantryman. Mm-hmm. Like he was actually had to train with guns.
He was enlisted. All the ones that started enlisted that are still military officers higher up are some of the nicest people you've ever imagined that didn't start as officers.
And guess what happened? Petraeus, of course, they doxed him. They released all his emails, and now Eric Holder's having to decide whether or not to bring him up on charges. He disrupted the order. He disrupted the order, and now they're going to try and put him in prison.
He wasn't Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Petraeus? Yeah, he was chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. He wasn't?
No.
I believe he was.
No, he was the director of the CIA.
Oh, see.
Before that.
So before he was direct. See, these are people who have had one government office that slid into another government office that slid into another. I mean, I don't know if they're ever truly qualified to do what they're doing. Maybe, again, an individual presidency with that much power, I don't think anyone's lived a life that has prepared them enough for those kind of decisions that they have to make. Military is weird because I think it should protect us. I don't know if we should have so much foreign influence and everything.
The current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is a man named Martin Dempsey, who I've never heard of.
No one knows these people who are in charge of so much.
Right,
it's so funny.
Like literally the most powerful people. And I was wrong. Petraeus was never chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, so I was completely wrong about that statement. There's some position he held where it was in the military where he was like the first person in 50 years from the military to hold that position.
Probably commander of United States Central Command.
Yes, maybe.
With some official titles.
Yeah, there's a lot of
fancy.
I don't know what that means. That could be a dude who mops floors. I don't know what that means.
I think just we'd have some regular Joes come from nothing and get to office. I think with the internet that'll be much more possible because social media and people spreading stuff will get easier, and we don't have options that are just
really. I think it'll be a much less possible.
Really?
Because most people use Twitter, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right now, we have a Facebook ad. Okay, if we put $10 million in Facebook's pocket, everyone would see our post.
Yeah. Listen here, we put like $0.00 into Facebook advertising. We got free credit, and that got us like several hundred clicks to our page. Imagine if we had actual money to throw at that. We could be president if we had Mitt Romney money.
Pulling back the curtain here. We got free credits for Facebook for signing up, and we did a little ad thing. And for like $5 a day of credit, we got like $50 credit. We've gotten like 300 likes off that. Okay, which
that's so cool. But that's scary.
But let's think about. But here's the one that's more impressive. We got $100 in credits for Bing ads.
Oh yeah, this is very terrifying.
Bing, okay.
Yeah, I would never use Bing.
We're talking
right.
Bing.
Yeah, that's what we thought. We thought no one uses Bing. LOL. This is great. This is giving us like monopoly money for this, right? Now listen to the numbers.
We have gotten. Okay, so impressions, which is how many people has the ad been shown to. Now, whether or not they actually read it or whatever, just the ad appeared for how many people? In the order of 20 to 30,000.
Out of $100? That's really crazy advertising right there.
But let's turn that into a conversion rate. How many of those people actually visited our website?
No idea. 10%? 20?
Well, if you look at conversion rates, they're usually a lot lower than that. Okay, so like if an ad, because most people have ad block on.
I didn't know.
And then of those who have ad block on, who don't have ad block on, you usually scroll past the ads, right? You don't read them. Okay.
Right at the top.
So if you have like a 2% conversion rate, it's really high.
Huh.
Okay.
It's still 2 of 20,000 people is a lot. It's 200.
Yeah, we've had 600 people.
600. Oh, okay.
Visit. Okay, so we're like tripling what is normally considered a great rate, and I would initially doubt their numbers and say, oh, they're being really shady with their stuff.
Number fluffers.
We have Google Analytics, and I can see the chart, and what they say are clicks for that day is what we got.
See, yeah, if you had $1 million to throw at that, you'd be number one in like
everyone would see your page. So if you throw $10 million, I mean, and that's, imagine if we did the ad on Google.
Well, if there were 30 people all putting ads up.
Imagine if our name was different. If we weren't advertising MaD Bro Radio. If we were advertising like
Boob Radio.
Davis for president. Yeah. Obama's taking your children. Like
XXX.
Yeah, XXX, and we'll give you some. I mean,
billion
every time. Yeah, 20,000. We get 19,989.
Yeah. So, what you're saying about, I think the internet's going to make it less likely that like the average Joe gets elected, because now people are going to be inundated with the message of those who have the money.
I think it'll eventually even out over the long term.
Well, there's forums.
Well, like there's forums, but I mean that's only for people that are intelligent enough to use the forum. The vast majority of people accessing the internet they're just. I think the bottom feeders are the step above the. I don't use the internet. Like they're just the one little step above that person, to where they're like, oh, I use the internet. I go to the Google. And I go to the YouTube and watch Kid Rock videos, and they see that and they're like, boobs, and Obama's taking my children. I'm gonna vote for him, and then they click it. Okay, go ahead, please.
Think about it this way: on the Joe Rogan web forums, which is the online community that we're a part of, for our listeners who don't.
What? Never heard of it.
We've gotten more clicks from Bing than there are active users on the Rogan board. just think about scale here.
Right, okay, yes. I guess that was kind of, yeah. So that's my point. I mean,
just scale here. We've gotten more clicks from Bing. Okay, and by the way, if you're listening to us and you came to us from Bing,
we love you all the same.
Yeah, we love you.
Unless you have another tab open with YouTube and you're actively looking up Kid Rock videos, in which case, please stop. And don't show it to your stepchildren.
Kid Rock? Was that one, the white trash one? He had one or two good songs.
Kid Rock, fire with a powder, bang to bang.
That's the one.
Come on, y'all are haters. Okay.
I like Kid Rock. I said it. Can I use the bathroom?
Hey, he's not hating.
Oh,
I'm hating.
You know what? We are almost at 4
we're almost at the
hours.
time. Oh my God, are we? Oh, that was fun. That flew by.
And actually, I think we're past 4 hours. We have like the 15 minutes we recorded before Skype crashed. Okay, so before you go, Christian, please promote everything you have to promote and where people can buy your vegan weed in the future.
Is that a suntan? Wait. Before you do anything, look at Davis's arm. What's going on there?
Texas. It's a driving tan?
In the winter? You've got that in the winter?
No, it's not from driving. It's just a tan. I have a perpetual sleeve tan. Yeah, it's what happens when you live in Texas, and we get more like sunlight than you just because we're lower on Earth, or excuse me, we're closer to the equator. I said lower on Earth. We get like more hours of sunlight than you, so like it just happens. And we have longer parts of our year in which we don't need jackets.
Well, yeah,
that's true.
Well, that's just a dramatic white. Jesus.
You guys need some grow lights. You get a tan year round. I don't know how healthy it is, though.
Do they tan you?
Yeah, they tan you.
How much is a grow light? Just one.
1,000 water, $300, maybe a cheaper one.
I'll just put one right over my computer.
All the time with
never
little
be white again.
UV damage to your eyes all the time, though. But, sorry.
Okay, so how can we?
You can reach our future website, flowerfactories.com. Hopefully no one registers that before I get done with this podcast, because I have to go do that right after this. And
GoDaddy.
GoDaddy.
We're big fans.
I was also using Squarespace to design the website, which is pretty cool.
Bad idea.
What? Not good? No?
Yeah, they're never going to advertise with us. Okay, Squarespace.
No, it has nothing to do with advertisement. They're not good.
Oh, I thought Matt was giving me the thumbs down, like stop.
No, I was giving the thumbs down for Squarespace.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were telling me, they might advertise someday.
Oh, no, they're definitely
Squarespace, we tried using it. It's unusable garbage.
See, I was looking
at like a Tumblr blog.
No, I want something professional. But
if you want something professional, I mean, like GoDaddy with the WordPress, it's like $12 a year.
Oh, that's really reasonable. I should just do that and just set it up from there, because we have to have a little blog for everything.
I'm telling you, like,
promote what we are. Yeah.
Have you seen our website?
Yeah, the Mad Bros.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like the greatest website in the world, but like it's a professional front. Like it looks, but it's kind of well done. I did that myself. I've never done a website before.
It looks good for a first timer right there. It looks professional enough for what you guys need. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, that's what. So like, if someone spent like more time than I put in, which I put in like 2 or 3 hours into that, if you're willing to put some time into it, like with the GoDaddy, you can for sure get something. And they have plugins. Like if you want to, actually, I don't think you can probably order online for your business, can you?
In the future, when federal opens up, yes. And I plan to ship to places that are high number of vegetarians and vegans, like Nepal and Eastern Asia. So hopefully that goes well.
Yeah, good luck getting internet into Nepal.
They have it there. They got it there. I was in Kathmandu. Yeah, they have it all over the country now. I was there last year and a half ago. Yeah, for about 4 months. It's really fun.
Yet Skype crashes during the middle of our show.
I know, Internet, America, we're behind. But you can also get our product at the top in Airway Heights, which is a recreational store, and then 2 more in Seattle we're trying to deal with. We'll see how that goes in the future, but you will see our product out there and will be more advertised soon.
And any more developments, let us know. We'll talk.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a prescription in the state of Washington, where should you be filling your prescription?
Well, for recreational, you don't need one. Anyone from out of state can come buy the weed.
I thought you did some medical still.
Medical, on medical side, you can get your prescription and pretty much go to Spoke Cannabis, EK Green,
He's like, why would I need to advertise this? There's so many.
That's a real name.
Yeah, Spokanibus. Spokanibus. Local.
Wait. This is a medical facility.
Spokanibus. They have Urban Pipe, Herb Nerds. All these places are dispensaries in town that carry our product. So yeah, we're all around Spokane and in Seattle.
And God bless them. I mean,
it's silly.
I would have just thought that a medical facility that's trying to present themselves as, you know, something legitimate would have a little bit more perspective. You know, Washington Healing Center.
It is one. There's the Washington Healing Center in Seattle. There's a place named that. But most of these medical places, they're selling recreational weed. People go there to get high on weed. They don't care about the medical side of it. Only a few places really do. And so you can see a huge difference if you look around at the stores here in the names. Look at Weed Maps. How many stores are here in their names?
But obviously, your intent in growing and your entire process is in compliance with all state laws to the best of your knowledge. And again, none of us are lawyers or medical experts.
Except for me. So, I am both.
He's being facetious. He's being facetious.
I'm not being facetious. I am unfacetiously both a lawyer and a doctor. Before continuing pursuing anything in the marijuana field, consult with a lawyer, consult with a medical professional, and also me.
Before doing so.
Yeah, everything we're doing is legit, and don't just start growing on your own, or don't start taking it on your own. Look into the law and look into some specialists out there.
But you could actually start growing and taking it on your own.
Okay, I know you need to use the restroom. I just have one more question that popped in my head.
Go ahead.
So like all this grow equipment you have, like if you just decided tomorrow that you wanted to grow some badass roses, would you be set up?
I don't want to get into that too much, but I've looked at prices on ethnobotanicals, which we'd only grow for educational purposes.
Ethnobotanicals?
Those are psychedelics of different types of plants.
We clearly need another podcast for all of this.
I said roses, like...
we want to grow like lemongrass and a few endangered plants as well, which we have a lot of already in different facilities. And if we could not do cannabis tomorrow, we could make a living on growing so many other things. Cannabis is just something I really like.
Okay, so the equipment's not that specialized.
No, it's just like the sun. Anything that grows into the sun, even us with a tan on it.
It's a sun that you bought at the store.
It's a sun. It's inside your home. It's very safe.
Okay. All right, our guest. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I had nothing. Go ahead. Okay. Well, no, okay. No, I've been using Flowers as my fake last name for probably 10 years now. So if you ever need anybody, to be like a spokesperson or anything like that, it just really ties in. I really like the name that you guys are going for. So got the Matt Flowers seal of approval right here.
Thank you very much, Matt and Robert. This has been fun for that. No, but seriously, I would like to have some interactions with you guys in the future and do some cross-advertising.
No, definitely. I would out there. We'll talk about it, definitely.
We'll put a little focus on the Matt.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this too, and thank you for having me. This was really fun.
No, me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you on later to talk about the obviously the hypothetical psychedelics that don't really exist. You're not really planning on doing because that would not be legal and would definitely not commingle with your legal activities.
Davis didn't mean any of that. Hypothetically,
I meant everything I said.
Okay.
Well, there are centers that want ayahuasca and stuff that can get legal reason to do so in the near future, and having local sources would be pretty cool for those people. So maybe supplying them with legal means where it would be where we would go after this, or even if it opens up as an opportunity. So all of that we're looking into in the future. So hopefully it goes well.
All right.
Yeah.
Definitely. This is by far our longest episode. And did Skype just quit on me?
No.
Okay.
It's working for me.
I'm sorry, everyone's video just stuttered up. Our guest has been Christian Radcliff from the
great state of Washington.
Smoke weed, smoke weed, sell weed. This
Smell
is
flowers.
Matt Radio.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, guys.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Oh.
computers? Do you like to dance? Do you like crazy rhythm? Do you hate fucking trance? Do you hate pop culture and what it does to your head? Grab a beer, go online, rock with me instead.